Hello, welcome to the Foul Play YouTube channel, Reading with the Crew, episode 65.
Awesome. Thank you so much there, Jack61, and a warm welcome to everyone on the panel, and a warm welcome for everyone that has joined us, no matter what platform you're listening on. Thank you so much. Tonight, we have a smaller panel. Life happens, and people are very, very busy at this time of the year. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel to you, our esteemed panel to you that is here tonight. Welcome, Jack61. How are you coming along, good sir?
Thanks, Doc. Yep, doing pretty good. Welcome to everyone that's in the live chat that's joined us. I'm sure we got people still popping in, so yeah, doing very well, and hope everybody enjoys this. It's a really tiny show. Ha ha ha. We'll be lucky to get through it. Seriously. A lot of slides tonight.
Yeah, we may have to break it in two, but we'll see how much we can get through. Right, Jack61.
Absolutely.
Awesome. And I also like to welcome, I don't recall. Welcome.
Thank you. Hi, everybody, and welcome to Reading with the Crew.
Fantastic. Thank you so much, everyone. For those of you who don't know, my name is Dr. Silkman, and I'm from Adelaide, South Australia. And before we start the podcast, I'd just like to say, yeah, you may have heard on the news of a horrible stabbing incident here in Australia. It wasn't in my state, where 6 people lost their lives, including a young baby. Just shocking. And the person who did the stabbing was shot and killed by a police officer. And it really, really is tragic. And we think of them and their families at this stage. It's a terrible situation. Unfortunately, terrible things happen all around the world, including my own country. So welcome, guys. We'll try our very best. Today, we do have a very special podcast for you guys. It's going to be hard-hitting, but we'll make a start. Jack61, if we can have the very first slide, please. Yep, so as Jack61 said, we're going to be continuing our Reading with the Crew series. We're on episode number 12 of this particular series, where we're reading specific passages from John Ferak's book entitled The Wrecking Crew. And not only do we read passages from the book, we also expand the material that we cover. What we're doing is we're looking at the new chapters entitled New Witnesses Emerge. Yuri, do you have a comment?
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't realize it wasn't muted.
No, not at all. Not at all. So, guys, if you do enjoy what we do, please subscribe, put your DNA on the thumbs up button, and share our podcasts. And all of us here want to thank you guys so much. You guys have been fantastic support, great questions, and it's just been awesome. The Reading with the Crew series and the Open Mic series have received a lot of views, a lot of positive comments. Thank you so much. We do read your comments. So, guys, if you've got any suggestions for future podcasts, please let us know. Everyone here would like to thank all of our subscribers, our supporters, and also our mods and our super mods. Susan's coming on for a little while. Fantastic. Welcome, Susan. So, guys, what are we going to be doing today? We're going to be having a look at some very, very interesting topics, controversial topics. So, here's what we're going to do today. Here are the questions. So, question number 1. Did Brendan Dassey have first-hand knowledge about the RAV4 and the license plates? We're going to deep dive into this. This is very, very important. Whether he actually did know whether he was actually there, dumping the RAV, removing the number plates, or did he garnish all his information from the media? That's a very important question that we're going to deep dive. Secondly, this is very interesting. What did Brendan Dassey say to Fassbender and Uyghur that made them scramble and get photographs of the Avery salvage yard. This is very, very interesting indeed. Then we're going to look at what you actually have to do in order to crush a vehicle and have it concealed on the Avery salvage yard. Is it very simple or is it very, very complex? And finally, now this is going to be a real head scratcher. Judge Angela Sukowitz wanted to blame the so-called unnamed male that was seen in the RAV4 for both the murder and the planting. And the logic that Judge Angie used is just going to blow your mind. And if we have time, guys, we're going to answer your questions. Now, today's podcast potentially can be quite long, but we'll see how far we can go. When we all get a little bit tired, we'll stop it. We don't want to rush it. Again, guys, thank you so much. Keep your questions coming. Put a little cue, and we'll try and answer your questions at the end of the podcast. Thank you so much. So, Jack 61, if we can have the very first slide, please.
Did you want me to do that clip?
After the first two slides.
Yeah. That's right.
Awesome. So, guys, just to let everyone know about copyright claim, copyright disclaimer, all this material that we cover belongs to John Ferak. These are the words and writings of John Ferak and the thoughts of John Ferak and also Kathleen Zellner. We're here expressing our own personal opinions, and we're discussing it during the podcast. The only thing that we ask, guys, is please be civil and respectful in your comments. Thank you so much. Jack 61, if we can have the next slide, please. Everyone here knows what the Foul Play team is here for. We want to find out the truth, good, bad, or otherwise, of what happened to Teresa Horbach that horrible day in Wisconsin. And guys, because of the material that we are covering, especially in today's podcast, viewer discretion is strongly advised. All right. Jack 61, do we have any comments?
Well, yeah, I was just, I didn't read every slide, when I was putting everything together you sent me, but yeah, it can definitely be a little triggering. There's no doubt. No doubt.
Okay. So our very first slide is actually a short little clip. I'll just wait till Jack 61 puts this up.
Whenever you're ready. As soon as I put it up, it's going to start playing.
All right. So, guys, pay close attention to this short clip. It only goes for a few seconds, but it actually is very revealing. Jack 61, whenever you're ready. Good, sir.
Yeah, I think it's only 15 seconds, so it's going to start as soon as I put it on stage. Here we go.
Okay.
Avery's let Hallback's friends search for Teresa's car on their salvage lot. They find it hidden under branches and scrapped metal. The license plates are missing. The hidden SUV is enough for police to get search warrants. They ship Hallback's car to the state crime lab for testing.
All right. You want to play that one more time and listen to what the reporter says. Now, remember, guys, this is November the 20th. So it's very, very early on in the investigation. Have a listen to what the reporter says.
The Averys let Hallback's friends search for Teresa's car on their salvage lot. They find it hidden under branches and scrapped metal. The license plates are missing. The hidden SUV is enough for police to get search warrants. They ship Hallback's car to the state crime lab for testing.
Okay.
Wow. All kinds of goodies in that. I mean, I listened to it, when you sent it to me, when I converted it, but it's hidden under branches and scrap metal. Number one, that's wrong. There were some branches stacked around it. I don't remember any scrap metal being on it. The hood, I think a hood was linked up against it.
Yes, correct. But the other important thing, of course, guys, is that the number plates were missing. Right?
The number plates were missing. Yeah.
So essentially, the reporter basically let out what was present on the RAV4, and also that the number plates were missing. Now, at this stage, November the 20th, Stephen Avery had been arrested, right? Brendan Dassey wasn't even thought of. But I'll show you why that's a very important clip. So if we can have a look at the very first slide. So guys, as you can see here, on November the 5th, when Pam and Nicole Sturm went on the Avery salvage yard. Pam Sturm discovered the RAV4 in super quick time. And Nicole Sturm took several photographs of the RAV4. And what you can see here is essentially describing sort of what the reporter stated in the news report in the media, that the RAV4, there were some branches around it, and also there was some scrap metal, but it wasn't on top of the vehicle, it was on the side. But if you look very, very closely, what you notice is that both the front and rear number plates were missing, right, from the RAV4. But it's pretty obvious, as Jack 61 pointed out, that the RAV4 itself wasn't really well disguised at all. All the insignia of the RAV4 was still present on the car. So anybody in the vicinity of the RAV4 can easily make out the make, the model, and the color. So guys, in my opinion, and we've discussed this, and I'd like to hear your comments in chat, the RAV4 was not properly disguised. It was meant to be found. Guys, would you agree? Jack 61, I don't recall. Would you agree? The RAV4 was poorly disguised.
Definitely.
It absolutely had to be found by a civilian, not a freaking cop, because they'd already been there twice and didn't find anything and had no grounds to get a search warrant.
Correct. Absolutely correct. So if, the state's hypothesis is what Stephen Avery, he had taken off the number plates and his intentions were to crush the RAV4, right? So if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, you can see that from these crime lab photographs, quite clearly the number plates were removed from both the front and the rear of the vehicle. And the question is, who removed those number plates? Why remove them? And why place them where they were found, right? So quite clearly, the number plates were removed from the RAV4, but nothing was done in order to disguise the RAV4, and it was very, very easily found by Pam Sturm on the morning of November the 5th. So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please.
Well, just one comment about the plates, and it's kind of it's a main thing, but it's kind of a peripheral thing at the same time.
Yeah.
But just trying to think of the logic. Okay, somebody dumps this car on the lot. Clearly, it can be identified very easily. What's the point in removing those plates and leaving them on the property?
100% correct.
Right.
It actually made no sense.
No.
And as we discussed last week, right, if the whole intention of Stephen Avery was to, if Stephen and Brendan placed the RAV4 down there and the intentions were to crush the RAV4, the whole idea is, why create more traceable evidence? Why start spreading the evidence all over the place? Why not just simply keep it concealed within the RAV4, try and crush the vehicle, try and remove the vehicle all in one hit? By spreading out the evidence, including the number plates, there's a greater chance of you being detected, right? So it actually
because of handling it, and we know we've got male DNA on the plates. I'd love it if she could get those and run it with today's technology and see what they could find.
Excellent. So what we need to do is to figure out, how did that RAV4 get there, right? And so Brendan Dassey, he was questioned on March the 1st, right? In the March the 1st interview, he was questioned by Fassbender and Uyghur. Cherie, do you see the slide?
Yes, I do.
Would you like to read the part of Fassbender and Uyghur? And Jack 61, are you able to read the part of Brendan Dassey?
Absolutely.
Cherie? Yep, whenever you're ready, Cherie.
Okay. Uyghur, after she's in the fire, what do you guys do next?
Go take the Jeep down in the pit.
Fassbender, tell us how.
He drove it down there, and
Fassbender, were you in the Jeep with him?
Brendan nods yes. Mm-hmm.
Okay, tell us how you got down there,
He drove.
truthfully.
He drove down there, and he put it in back by the trees and covered it with branches and a hood.
How did you get down there? What route did you take?
Past Chucky's house.
Okay. So you can clearly see that when Brendan Dassey was questioned on March the 1st, he basically gave the route in which both himself and Stephen took the RAV4 down to the pit area. So if this actually took place, what you have to realize is this, that the RAV4 was taken down to the pit area on Monday evening, October the 31st, because if you remember the questioning, so what you do after the fire, after you put her in the fire, what do you do next? And Brendan Dassey says, we drove it down to the pit area. That means that the RAV4 was sitting out there at the pit area from Monday evening, October the 31st, all the way to Saturday mid-morning, November the 5th. And absolutely no one saw that RAV4 or noted the RAV4 on the property. And that also included both Drum, Pagel, and Baldwin, who were flying over Avery salvage yard between 15 and 20 minutes, low-flying passes. None of them recall seeing the RAV at the pit area, right? So,
or any customers during this 4 or 5 day time period that come in looking for whatever. I don't believe it. I'm sorry. I do not believe it. Don't buy it.
That is correct. Now, if you're Stephen Avery, say Stephen Avery is guilty, same with Brendan, and they place the RAV4 down at the pit area. The moment they place the RAV4 and leave the RAV4, they've lost control of the pieces of evidence. Guys, would you agree? Unless Stephen and Brendan are sitting there making sure that no one goes down to the pit area, they've lost control.
Absolutely.
Right? So it means that any customer, anybody, either brother, Chuck, Earl, Alan Avery, Mama Avery, the Dasseys, friends, anybody could have gone down there and potentially spotted the RAV4, right? So according to Brendan, they drove it past Chucky's place, right? This is on the March 1st interview. So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. So if you have a look at this diagram here, and you look at the yellow line, this is the route that Brendan Dassey stated that they drove the RAV4. Now, if you look at it, it meant that they would have had to have driven the RAV4 past Barb's house, Dolores's house, Chucky's house, right down to the pit area. And it meant that no one saw or heard a vehicle drive in the direction that Brendan Dassey said, right? So there are major issues, right? What we're trying to discover is whether Brendan Dassey had first-hand knowledge of the RAV4 and the number plates. The problem is that Brendan Dassey's recollections and statements, they are at odds with Sawinski, Baresh, Siebert, Ramlow, Burdick, LeQuinn, Robert Fabian, and of course, what Stephen said himself. Now, okay, you have to disregard Stephen because if you believe he's the murderer, of course he's going to say, I saw Teresa Hallbark leave, right? But the anecdotal evidence suggests that many independent eyewitnesses saw the RAV4 off the property, right? Brendan Dassey's, if you believe his recollections, he's essentially saying, no. On Monday night, after we finish placing Teresa Hallbark in the fire, we took the RAV4 down to the pit area and we drove past Chucky's place, right? So something is not gelling here, right? you've got all these independent witnesses saying, hey, I saw a vehicle that looked like Teresa's vehicle at the turnaround, and very damaging. You've got Sawinski and Baresh who are saying that on the early morning hours of November the 5th, especially what Sawinski saw, he saw two males pushing a RAV4 on the property. Jack 61 or Cherie, do you have any comments?
Well,
Houston, we got a problem?
well, I mean, again, you know, even if we discount, and I say discount, let's just say that two males, whether it be Bobby or anyone, is with that car, actually pushing that car, you got a real problem. I don't give a damn who it is. It doesn't matter.
Correct. 100% correct. Cherie, I don't recall. Do you have any comments so far?
No, I don't.
Okay. And it'll be interesting to get comments from chat. What do you think about Brendan Dassey's recollections about the fact that, hey, no, we drove the RAV4 down to the pit area on the evening of October the 31st. So, Jack 61, if we look at the next slide, what we need to ask is, well, okay, how reliable is Brendan Dassey and his recollections? Did Brendan Dassey have first-hand knowledge of how the RAV4 got down there? Does he have any knowledge regarding the number plates, how they were removed from the vehicle, from the RAV4? So, does he have knowledge, or was he randomly guessing, right? So, of course, when Brendan Dassey was interrogated by Fassbender and Wiegert, they did ask him about the number plates, right? At Jack 61.
Well, you know, we have to, you know, at the beginning, I mean, and probably for a good long while, way back, I'm talking about 2016 through, you know, 2017, whatever, I didn't really think too much about this 4 or 5 months that Brendan hadn't been arrested yet. And what all he heard at home, and I don't mean any offense to any of the family, I'm just saying it had to be a topic of discussion. What he saw on the news, somebody said, hey, Brendan, did you see this on the news? I saw this last night, man. Did you check that out? What he probably saw in the newspaper laying around and at school.
Correct.
So his ears were getting blown up. You know they were.
Yep.
That has to be considered with what was in his mind. And, you know, we have to consider that Brendan's a good kid, but he's a bit on the slow side. He's a bit on the slow side.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
So perceptions for him are different. I think in many, maybe not every respect, but in many respects, as far as you know, having a true adult understanding of what's going on.
Correct, 100% correct. So as you saw in that very first clip that Jack 61 put up, the short one, the media were already leaking information about what they found and very important pieces of information out in the media very, very early on. And normally in a criminal investigation, they hold certain things back. Jack 61.
Yeah, you know, speaking of the media and the reporting, and I can't remember the precise date, but I think it was the 6th or the 7th. There's a news report, and I know it's on N64's channel, and it's a reporter talking about, you know, activities of law enforcement and what they had found because they'd already released it. And she said they found blood on the property. She didn't identify the blood, so now we got a bloody crime scene planted in people's minds. And you know, she didn't necessarily say that, but that's the implication.
Yep. So essentially, what the reporters were parroting, guys, was everything that Pagel and Kratz were saying in the press conferences. So they were putting all that information out into the media, and people are hearing this. And of course, Brendan Dassey, he wasn't arrested, right? So he's hearing all these things in the newspaper, on TV, discussing at school, everywhere within his family. It was a topic that everyone was talking about. So what is intriguing is that Fassbender and Wiegert actually asked him about the number plates. So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide. I've got about 4 or 5 slides involving the interrogation of Brendan Dassey. And some of them occurred on March the 1st, others occurred later. So Cherie, are you able to read Wiegert and Fassbender? And Jack 61, are you happy to do Brendan Dassey? I've got
Sure.
about 4 or 5 slides. If you can read those parts out, that'd be awesome. So this is March the 1st.
Wiegert, okay, after he put the car there, what do you do next?
We walk out.
With
Notice he says no mention of the removal of the plates, no mention of disconnecting the battery. Go ahead.
Yep.
With how's the license plates were taken off the car. Who did that?
I don't know.
Did you do that?
Shake said no.
Did Steve do that?
Yeah.
Well, why'd you say you don't know? Did Steve take the license plates off the car?
No, it's yes. Yeah.
So notice, and this is something that is consistent with Brendan Dassey. He'll change his narrative if he's challenged. So if you notice what he says initially, I don't know, and Jack 61, you're correct. You see what he said? We walk out. And Wiegert's going, no, that can't be right, because we know certain things happen to the RAV4. So notice Brendan Dassey goes, well, after we put the RAV4 there, we just walked out.
Right.
And Wiegert goes back, no. What about the number plates? So it is interesting, right, guys, that it is the investigators themselves which are passing information on to Brendan, right?
Yep.
And
just like Fassbender did, leading to the battery, but go ahead.
Correct. So you have this common theme with Brendan all the time. Now, because Fassbender and Wiegert said to him often, you're either lying, or you're not telling us the truth, we know what happened, we just need to hear it from you.
Yeah, be honest, Brendan. Come on, Brendan, be honest.
Yep. They are feeding information to Brendan. And notice what he does. When he gets asked a direct question, well, did you do that? Brendan goes, no. Did Stephen do that? Well, to Brendan, well, I didn't do it. Since you already know that Stephen did it, yeah, he did it. So you have this common theme where Brendan is always deflecting to Stephen. Guys, do you see it?
Absolutely.
Yep. So he says it all the time. So can we have a look at the next slide? Unless you got a comment, Jack 61.
I did, but I can't think of it. We'll move on. Maybe I can think of it later.
Yeah. Now, there were additional interrogations prior to March the 1st, but this is the main one that was played in court. And this is the one where they were talking about the license plates, right? Because remember, Brendan implicated himself, so they want it memorialized. So now they're interrogating him proper. All right. So again, guys, this occurred on March the 1st. You guys ready?
Ready.
Wiegert, while he was raising the hood, did you take that license plates off?
No.
Who did?
He did.
Okay. Fassbender, what did he do with the license plates after that?
I don't know.
Wiegert, but you were with him. What'd you guys do with them?
He took them off.
And where'd you put them? Or where did he put them?
He had them in his house, but I don't know after where he put them.
You saw him put them in the house?
Brendan nods yes.
Okay. So you can see Brendan is changing the narrative depending on the questions that are being asked. And
Yep.
remember, it was Tom Fassbender that talked about going underneath the hood. What did he do? Was he underneath the hood? This is not information presented by Brendan, but it's by the investigators. Now, if Brendan had first-hand knowledge, think about it. And if Stephen and Brendan are guilty, it's very, very simple, guys. They dump the RAV, they take off the number plates, and they leave, or they cover up the RAV4 with various items, and then they leave. Brendan cannot give a straight answer. So when he is challenged, what he does is deflect and blame Stephen. But notice what he said. Now he goes, oh yeah, I saw Stephen take the number plates and place them in his house. Jack 61, or I don't recall any comments so far.
I just have one comment I'm going to put up here. It's from Behind the Magic. It's not really a question, but a comment.
Yep.
Brendan knew Stephen had been framed before, and I believe that thought was in the back of his mind, that the cops were going to frame him, so he agreed to blame Stephen to protect himself. Just my opinion. Well,
Yep.
that's possible.
That is indeed possible, because remember, the investigators were saying to Brendan, we already know. We already
That's
know.
right.
Right?
Yep. We just need to hear you say it.
Correct. I don't recall. Do you have a comment?
Yeah, was all the portions that we've read so far from March 1st, not the earlier ones? Okay.
March 1st. So what I've done is I've put the date of the interrogation sections on the bottom right-hand corner, right? Now, this is where things really turned around. And that's when they interviewed Brendan Dassey, or interrogated Brendan Dassey, on May the 13th. So can we have a look at the next slide, please, Jack 61? All right, Cherie and Jack 61, you guys ready? So this now is the May 13th interrogation. This is when Mr. Kratz wanted a clean confession from Brendan Dassey.
Fassbender, first version, you say you went down and ended up with Stephen with the RAV4. You saw some things down there. You told us about those things. Where'd you come up with that? You told us that Steve took the license plates off the vehicle. You told us that Stephen went under the hood of the vehicle. What did you just grab that out of? What? Did you just grab that out of the air? How do you know those things?
Just guessing. Of course he was.
Just guessing, right? Now, these, and by the way, that's exactly what he told his mother in a phone call. Just guessing, Mum. That's what I do for my homework, right?
Yep, I remember that.
Correct. But it's quite clear that Brendan has got no idea of the severity and the trouble that he is in. He believes that he can spew out any answers. They're obviously going to tweak that Brendan is guessing, but they're not. For Fassbender and Wiegert, they're taking what Brendan says as gospel, because the state never had a narrative of what actually happened. The narrative is being provided by Brendan. I don't recall.
Sorry. So I take it this portion was not played at the trial. They didn't play any of the May 13th? Okay.
No, but they used a phone call from Brendan in this session, because Wiegert convinced Brendan to ring up his mother, and they played part of the call to his mother to say, as evidence, to say, see, he admitted to doing it. And when Brendan said some of it, Brendan was indeed correct. He did do some of it because he went and helped his uncle clean up the garage, right? So that's why it's very important not to cherry pick, not to take statements out of place, but to listen to lots of calls and then make up your mind. Remember, this kid is in a highly emotional state. Fassbender and Wiegert said to him, Are you going to be okay that you lied to us? What's your mother going to think? So he was extremely distraught, right? Highly emotional, and people misinterpret what Brendan actually meant. And when you listen to other phone calls, you realize that what Brendan was basically saying, yeah, I did do some of it. I was over helping my uncle. And I think there was a call between him and his auntie, right, Jack 61, when the discussion was, how many years in prison am I going to get for helping clean the garage floor?
Yep,
Jack 61.
that's right. I
Correct.
think he was talking to Candy.
Correct. So that's the way Brendan thought. Now, this should have rung alarm bells between Fassbender and Uyghur when Brendan goes, I'm just guessing, right? I am just guessing. Now, the foul play team has been criticized for not putting up the phone calls of Brendan Dassey. We had them. We were actually asked by Brendan's attorney, and Brendan himself, who said, please don't put up the phone calls. So we obeyed what his attorney, I think it was Nyrider at the time, communicated with us, please don't put them up. And we have respected those wishes at Jack 61.
That's exactly right. It's personal choice. Anyone can open records request and publish things, but there's I guess that dotted line, Brendan was a child when this happened. We have other material that I won't publish because number one, in this instance, not Brendan, but another family member, it's irrelevant. It's
Yes.
complete, and this child was a minor at the same time, and he's grown with, married with kids now. So why would, there is a somewhat, I think, I'm not a reporter. We're not reporters.
No.
We're disseminating and passing on information, but some of that information is highly personal, and it can be very,
Correct.
very hurtful. Very
Correct.
hurtful.
Correct. Yeah.
I take
correct.
I didn't really think about that, in the beginning about getting records and so forth, but I quickly saw like, whoa, hold on. Do we really want that out there? Do we want to be responsible for publishing this? So.
Correct. Whereas Stephen's got no issues whatsoever, right? So if we have a look at the next slide, please, Jack 61, slide E4, right? Again, this is still May 13th. I just wait for that slide to come up. All right, guys, are you ready?
Ready to go.
Uyghur, well, you told us that he took the license plates off. How do you know that?
Because the next day, he told me he took them off.
Uyghur, okay, where did he say he put them? I heard that he showed them to you.
I don't remember.
Did he show them to you?
Not that I know of. Shake said no.
So again, Brendan has changed narrative, right?
Yep.
And notice what Brendan says. He goes, he showed them to me the next day at Jack 61.
Yep.
Right? And then he doesn't remember when they were shown to him, right? So the question has to be asked, does Brendan really have any first-hand knowledge of those license plates and the RAV4 that he couldn't got from the media? What do you guys think? And also in chat, what do you think? Jack 61.
I think he could have picked all of it up from the media. Family, he hears them talking and probably is part of some of the conversations that are going on. I have no doubt of that. Again, we're talking about 4 or 5 months later, so there's been a lot that's happened.
Correct. A lot of water gone under the bridge. All right. Now let's continue, right, with the next slide. And again, this is May the 13th. Let's go for it, guys.
Uyghur, then just say that. I think you do, but we'll go on to something else right now. Obviously, you don't want to talk about that. Did you ride down in her Jeep to that pit? Where he covered it up?
No.
Did you ever go down there and look at it?
No.
So, guys,
It's
can you
laughable.
Can you see Brendan in the same interrogation has completely changed narrative from going down to the pit area with Stephen, dumping the RAV4, covering up, taking off the license plates, to him saying, no, I actually didn't go down there, and no, I didn't look at it. So how can the state look itself in the mirror and say that Brendan Dassey is a good witness, eyewitness to the crime, Jack 61?
It's ridiculous. This is why this has been so blown up.
Yep.
You just, to me, any decent investigator long before this would have said, "Wait, this is wrong. This is," but they had to have him. Kratz had to have him, and he knew it.
Yep.
Because they knew as early as, I think it was November 4th or 5th. It was very early. They knew that Brendan was over at Stevens. They knew it.
Yes. Yes. 100% correct. Now, Fassbender and Wiegert know, they're hearing Brendan talk. What Brendan is basically doing, guys, is he's recanting. Right? He's actually recanting. He's completely changing narrative. Have a look what Fassbender does next. Right? If we can have a look at the next slide, guys.
Yep.
Have a look what Fassbender does. And in this is a very, very interesting total change in direction. Let's go for it, guys.
Okay, another question again. Teresa and you are important here. That's all that matters right now, not Stephen. You're being selfish. In our first interview, you talk about helping Stephen put the hood on the car and branches and stuff like that. Did you help him do that? Don't think, did you help him do that?
Yes.
That's what I thought, because you wouldn't have known that otherwise. So when and how did you help him do that? Again, don't have to think, when did it happen? At night?
Yeah.
So you did go down to the pit with him that night?
Mm-hmm.
That's what I thought. Tell me about that.
Well, the way we got down there was the back way. We're behind this cabin, and because there's a field right behind, there's trees behind them. There's a field there. There's a way back there.
All right. So all of a sudden, during the interrogation, Fassbender and Wiegert are looking at each other thinking, the back way? What the hell is he talking about? And we'll continue that in a second. But notice Brendan has now completely changed narrative. He's now admitted, yeah, I was down there. Yeah, we did cover it up. But notice what Fassbender is doing. He's invoking and including Teresa's name in there, right? Teresa and you are important here. And he says to Brendan, don't think, just answer, Jack 61.
Well, and he fed him what he wanted him to say. He narrated it for him.
Yep.
And
correct.
on top of that, that last sentence where Brendan says they went in the back way, you drove down that berm and drove down there? I don't think so.
Yep. But notice what Fassbender says to him. I'll quote, because you wouldn't have known that otherwise.
Yeah, right.
So what Fassbender is alluding here, oh my God, Brendan Dassey must have had first-hand knowledge, right? But if we have a look at the next slide, remember the little clip that I played to you right at the beginning, how they were giving out all the information about the RAV4, right? Well, in the newspaper on December the 7th, right? That's one day after the pre-trial, and Pam Sturm gives her evidence. And look what they have in the paper. I quote, it was so unusual because there were branches lying across the vehicle and a car hood laying on it. Now, if that was being discussed in the family and they checked the newspaper, they listened to the media, Brendan Dassey could have gotten all the information about the RAV4 from the media. Guys, would you agree? Jack 61.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yep. Cherie, what about yourself? You could
Yes.
have gotten all the primary information from hearsay, from listening to it, either on the media, in the print, and on TV, right? So,
Right.
Jack 61, if we have a look at the next slide, and here's the obvious proof. When they were at Crivets, you can see the family was together. They're obviously discussing. And have a look at this. Remember the reporter that went down to talk to Stephen and the family at Crivets? Well, have a look at this. They're all sitting around the TV listening to the investigation as it's unfolding. Now, Brendan Dassey, remember, went to Crivets with Chuck Avery on November the 4th. Stephen and his mum and other family members went there on November the 5th, right? So I think this is either November the 5th or the 6th. Guys, this is after the RAV4 was found, right? And the family are clearly watching the news reports thinking, well, what the hell's happening on our property, right? So because Brendan obviously is in the family, a lot of that information could have been garnished from the media. So people in chat, I'd love to get your comments. Could it just simply be that Brendan got all his information about what he's saying to Fassbender and Uyghur directly from the media? I don't recall.
I wanted to mention early on, Passive Bear mentioned Fox Hills too, so that,
Yes.
whatever they indoctrinated him with that night.
Yes, 100% correct. And remember, people like Skolinski and O'Neill, they were telling the family all the forensic evidence that was being found. They were telling them, see, your brother's guilty. See, your brother's done this. And that would have been a conversation happening in the Dassey family and the Averys, right? So all of that would have been common knowledge. Jack 61.
Yeah, just the mention of Fox Hills, it really rackles me because to me, understanding all the events that occurred around Fox Hills, that was nothing short of a legal kidnapping or illegal. They just took them.
Yes. The whole idea. Sorry, Jack 61.
Well, we know they allegedly did this for their safety. Number one, which is bullshit. Number two, they let them go the next morning. As far as I know, they didn't talk to anyone about threatening Barb and the kids or anybody that lived. No one.
Yep, 100% correct. All right, so let's continue. Now remember, Brendan Dassey has just given them another route where they took the RAV4. So let's continue, Jack 61, slide E9. Guys, are you ready? Let's go for it.
Fassbender, yeah.
So that's the way we took. And then we went down in the pit and put it right by the lake. So it wouldn't take that long to crush it because it was close to the place where they crush.
I think Teresa's starting to be happy with you right now because I think that's the truth. And then what'd you do after you put the car there?
We started throwing branches and a car hood on it.
And then what happened? Is this when you saw him do some things to the car?
Yeah.
Tell me what.
Well, we went under the hood and did some stuff, but I didn't see him.
Okay, what else?
And he took the license plates off.
All right, and then anything else that he did?
Not that I know of.
Okay, and then where did you go from there?
Then we started walking up to the house.
Mm-hmm.
And the time we got back, it was close to 10 o'clock.
Right.
Then I went home and talked to my mom a little bit and went to bed.
All right. So
Unbelievable.
let's think about this. Brendan Dassey is 16 years old. He came home from school, and now he has, during the interrogations, admitted to, let's get this right, rape, torture, witnessing a shooting, dismemberment, which he never mentioned, putting Teresa Halbach, who's 9 years older than him, on a fire, and then dumping
Massive fire.
massive, big whopping fire, then dumping the RAV. He saw his uncle remove the number plates. And look what Brendan says. I quote, "Then I went home, talked to my mum a little bit, and went to bed." Is anyone at this moment highly suspicious that Brendan Dassey committed any of those crimes? Are the 2 and 2 coming together?
Yep. In this instance, 2 and 2 equals, I don't know, negative 100. It just doesn't work at all.
Yep. Right. I think, the kid's just come home from school. He loves playing PlayStation games, watching a little bit of TV. He's now committed rape, murder, and dumped the victim's vehicle at the pit area. And he's just gone home, talked to his mum. No one detected anything. No one smelt anything. And he just went to bed, got up the next morning and went to school. And Fassbender and Wiegert, not one of them thought, I wonder if this kid's actually lying, right? At Jack 61, any comments, or Cherie?
Well, they were after a story. I mean, that's what the read technique is. They're about a statement. That's all it's about. The truth is another matter, but in reality, I think actually the read technique does tell them the story has to be backed up by something. You need something to solidify a statement, but that part of the technique they weren't interested in at all.
No. Now, as you can see, during this same interrogation and between the interrogation dates, Brendan Dassey's all over the place. Now, if you've got first-hand knowledge, surely your story has to be consistent. You can't flip and flop on totally different scenarios. And don't worry, we're going to go into it. All of a sudden, out of the blue, he's come up with another scenario in which both him and Stephen dumped the RAV, Jack 61.
And it didn't raise any real red flags with him. They would just go back and repound what they really wanted from him. They didn't say, "Wait a minute, were you really down there? Did you really do this?" They didn't do that at all. They needed that statement.
Correct. And remember, March the 2nd, Ken Kratz has already done the press conference, right? So all this stuff is out in the open, out in the media. And now you've got Brendan Dassey in his May 13th interrogation, flip-flopping and completely changing the narrative of everything that Ken Kratz presented to the media. But look at the next slide, Jack 61. If we can have a look at the next slide, E10. Yep. All right. You guys ready? Let's go for it.
Yep.
Fassbender. Okay, on the way back up, what did you do with the plates? Again, Teresa's here, and she's thanking you for being honest. Do you know what he did with the plates?
No.
You don't? Is that the truth?
Yes.
You say that right in front of Teresa now?
Oh, my God. Mm-hmm. Wow.
Wow. Right. So now Fassbender is using the guilt trip on Brendan. Come on, Teresa's here. This is about you and Teresa. Nothing to do with Stephen. You're being selfish now. Is this the truth? Teresa's hearing. Teresa's watching. And now remember, initially he said, I saw Stephen take the number plates to the house. He brought them inside his house. Now he goes, no, I don't know what he did with the plates. But notice one thing. Did Brendan Dassey ever say, my uncle dumped them in the station wagon on the way home?
No, he never did.
Oh, no, because Brendan has got no idea about the number plates, right? And that's why they were specifically hounding Brendan about these license plates, because the investigators knew where they were found, right? And they couldn't get it out of him. So we'll continue, but look at this. Brendan Dassey never tells them about going underneath the hood. That was done by Fassbender. Brendan Dassey never says, my uncle disconnected the battery. He goes, oh, yeah, my uncle went under the hood, but I didn't see those things, right? Brendan Dassey initially said, we walked away. Oh, no, you didn't walk away. What about the number plates? So Brendan is forgetting all the major tenets of what happened to the RAV4. Brendan Dassey just simply gave them back what he heard and saw in the media, Jack 61.
Yeah, and it was, originally it was Fassbender that brought up about Stephen going under the hood. Brendan hadn't said shit about that. Nothing.
100% correct. And who introduced the shooting scenario? It was Wiegert.
It was Wiegert.
Shot on the head, right? So wait a minute. For a kid that's meant to have first-hand knowledge, he told them nothing unique. It was the investigators, Fassbender and Wiegert, that fed him the primary information. And remember last week we played that little video clip about false confessions? That is Brendan Dassey to a T.
Yes.
Right? And so now, if we have a look at the next slide, E11. You got it up? Beautiful.
Yeah, it's up.
Notice now Fassbender's going, shit, what's Brendan actually saying about how they brought the RAV to the pit? Let's go for it, guys.
No, you went along this little, there, a berm kind of, right? A ledge, and then on the other side, there's a pit, that's the gravel pit, and this side is the salvage yard.
Yeah.
And you went right along that thing?
Yeah.
Oh, and then down here, you're able to get off that thing and get into a yard, huh?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, that makes sense. Wiegert, okay, why don't you sign that? And Fassbender, and put today's date on it, 13th. So this is 5/13.
Mm-hmm. Yep. So basically what Fassbender did, because I saw the interview from start to finish, they put a pieces of paper in front of him and said, well, draw out the route. Draw out the route. Which way did you now go? But notice, Jack 61, notice, I don't recall, they never challenged Brendan on his March 1st statements.
No.
Wait a minute, you've now, and we'll go over it, what you now have a different route, how you took the RAV4 down to the pit area. They never challenged Brendan on, no, wait a minute, on March the 1st, you told us you went down past Chucky's. What the hell are you talking about? Now, Jack 61 or Cherie or anybody in chat, has anyone ever seen the original drawing that Brendan signed? The one that he drew on May 13th. I can't find it.
I don't think I have. I don't think so.
Yeah. That'll be very interesting. See if we can get it as a FOIA, because it'll be very interesting the route in which he drew. But if you notice the video, you can make out the directions in which Brendan Dassey drew. But what interested Fassbender is that Fassbender, guess where Fassbender was leading Brendan Dassey?
Towards Cuss Road.
Towards Cuss Road.
Yep, he was.
Road, right? You watch the interrogation. Now, remember, they were at Cuss Road, right? The place where they only found a peat moss bag and a rotten wooden pallet. And Fassbender, you could see him in the video. Oh, so you went down towards this way. Because when he said cabins, Fassbender thought he was talking about the hunting cabins at Cuss Road on the deer camp. Brendan goes, no. We went down this region here, which was the Western Berm, right? So if we can have a look at the next slide, please. So if you haven't seen the interview, you must check it out. It's incredible, right? So as soon as Brendan started talking about this new route, Fassbender goes and gets the pictures of the Avery salvage yard. And you can see in the bottom right-hand corner, we get looking at the Avery salvage yard, the photographs of all the cars from above, thinking, well, what the hell is Brendan talking about? Because Brendan basically described to them a new pathway for the RAV4. And Fassbender initially thought, oh my God, they did go to Cuss Road, until Brendan corrected them to say, no, we went this way along the berm, we went around the back way. Jack 61 or Cherie, any comments?
Well, I just number one, I just don't think they could drive down that berm because of just the terrain. Number one. Number two, there would have been some kind of indication in the soil had they come off of that berm to come onto the yard, and they didn't even question it.
No. So, and people in chat, have you guys actually seen this particular interrogation, the 13th of May? Jack 61, Cherie, have you seen it?
Oh, yeah, I've seen it. I've seen it several times. Absolutely.
Yep.
I have a couple, but it's been a while.
Yeah.
Yep. If you haven't, it's definitely worth checking out. Fassbender and Wiegert were so frustrated, so pissed off with Brendan. I think they left twice, and they threatened him.
Oh, yeah.
Why are we down here? I thought you wanted to talk to us, right?
Right.
And this is when Kaczynski went, I think, with the army. He had something to do with the army.
Oh, guard duty.
Guard duty, and they arranged this with Ken Kratz. And what Kratz wanted was a clean confession from Brendan Dassey to present to the judge, ask for leniency for Brendan, 15, 20 years, boom. But you could see that Brendan was all over the shop. Jack 61.
Yeah, I mean, the whole thing this was a setup by O'Kelly and Kaczynski. There's no doubt about it. This was a complete hijacking of Brendan. It was intentionally done to get him back into the room with these guys without Kaczynski being present.
Correct. And this is actually, sorry, Jack 61.
You know, I've said it a million times. Kaczynski got his ass thrown off the case for not being there.
That's correct.
And Kratz had to approve this interrogation, knowing that Kaczynski wasn't going to be there, and nothing happened to him.
No,
nothing.
Kaczynski and O'Kelly only got a slap on the wrist, and that was it. So they left their client at the mercy of Fassbender and Wiegert without any legal representation, right? And as you can see, Brendan Dassey, he was all over the shop, but it gets worse, right? If we have a look at the next slide. Now, this is truly remarkable. They're questioning Brendan. They're now very interested in this back way approach, right? Well, wait a minute. How did you get the RAV there? And look at the questions that they asked Brendan. Let's go for it, guys. Keep attention that now Brendan is describing this back way. Let's go for it.
Wiegert, the Jeep. Yeah, when you drove it down here, where did you park it?
Like right here.
Okay, let's put an X there. And which way was it facing?
That way, pointing in the wrong direction, orientation.
Fassbender, do you remember?
No, Chick said no.
Okay, don't guess then. Just say you don't remember. You don't remember which way it was facing? Okay, remember this. Here's Steven, right? Here's Steven's, right? Is that his garage?
Mm-hmm.
Guys, this is... I'm lost for words. Right? Now, remember, you have got the superior knowledge. I'm talking about Brendan Dassey. Why? Because according to the state, he was down there with his uncle and they drove the RAV. And now Brendan's saying, oh, no, we went the back way. And I asked him, I said, which way was the RAV4 pointing? And Brendan with his pen, you watch it, watch the clip, goes like that. And they look in shock and horror saying, don't guess, because he showed it on video. He pointed his pen. He placed the orientation of the RAV4 the other way. The problem is the RAV4 was this direction, not that direction. And why is that important? That has got implication of how they drove it in. Right, Jack 61? Right, Cherie? Yep. And Fassbender goes, don't guess. Because Brendan even got that wrong. Now, if you're a passenger in the RAV4, according to Brendan, he said that he drove it down there with his uncle. Are you trying to tell me now you can't remember the orientation of the RAV4, the nose, the direction of the RAV4? He pointed in the opposite direction. And Fassbender goes, don't guess, because he knew. Brendan Dassey got another fundamental point wrong about the RAV4, Jack 61. Any comments? What do people in chat are thinking about all this crap?
I accidentally muted myself. Yeah, I mean, there's been a lot of they're talking about. I wanted to say hello to Travis, and awesome. I see Sala, and there's several, but we have a new person named Ryan Simmons. I think they believe I think he believes that Stephen and Brendan are guilty. I haven't had time to read through everything, but they made a couple of comments, and there's just been a lot of different comments. Here's another one from Louise. I'll put this up. It's a short one.
Yep.
After the suppression hearing, O'Kelly had what looks like a poster in his hand.
Yes,
he very well may. Well, O'Kelly, I can't say enough about that guy. That's a whole other 5-hour podcast.
Yes, they showed.
Anyway,
O'Kelly showed him blue ribbons from Teresa Hallbach's church. So he had it all laid out on the table, including a wooden spoon, right? For Brendan. Yep. Jack 61. Yep. All right. So let's unpack this, right? Because Fassbender and Uyghur were going, oh, what the hell are you talking about, Brendan? Let's have a look at the next slide, Jack 61. So let's have a look at this. On March the 1st, during that interrogation session, he told Fassbender, Brendan Dassey told Fassbender and Uyghur, and my uncle and I drove the RAV4 on the yellow path that you see. Right? On March 1st, he said, no, we drove the RAV4 in this direction and we put it into the pit. Now, the irony is that if they did drive it in that direction, the RAV4 is pointing in the correct orientation, nose up, right? Now, in the May 13th interrogation, out of the blue, Brendan Dassey goes, no, we went this way. So if you notice, shown in red, they went on the field. This is according to Brendan. They went on the field and then went down the western berm. They went the back way. But the problem is, we know which direction the RAV4 is facing. So that meant they would have had done a loop-de-loop in order to bring the RAV4 facing in the western direction, right? So that's why it'll be interesting to get the original picture of Brendan Dassey, right, guys? Because that'll show you how he drew the route of the RAV4, whether he drew a loop-de-loop or straight down, Jack 61.
Yeah, Doc, I'll have a scan through the discovery and the exhibits and see if I can find if it's been entered anywhere. I just don't remember seeing it. There's a lot. There's 500 exhibits. 500.
Yep.
And I don't know how many entries into the ledgers a lot, but I'll see if I can find it.
Yep. Now, the diagram that I drew in red, that's only speculative because I haven't seen the original drawing. But when you look at the video, you can actually see Brendan, the way he drew it out, where he put the X, where Stephen's house was. It's definitely going in the back direction. But when he drew and was asked which orientation was the RAV4 facing, he got it wrong. He pointed in the wrong direction. He said the RAV4 was facing east, and then Fassbender goes, "Oh, don't guess, don't guess." But what is interesting here is that, remember what Stephen said on November the 3rd. Stephen said that he saw tail lights near his residence, right? And as a consequence, when Stephen and Chuck were going to Menards, Stephen saw the tail lights, asked his brother to turn around, and they drive back and they searched. I think Stephen said they had got a torch out. They looked, they couldn't find anything. Well, if Stephen and Chuck are all the way at the end of Avery Road, if they see tail lights, potentially a vehicle could have been heading away from them, right? Which is interesting because that's the route that Brendan talked about, a vehicle going down the Western Berm or towards Cuss Road. From Stephen's perspective, he sees tail lights, not headlights. The vehicle is going away from where Stephen and Chuck were. Guys, would you agree? And all of a sudden, Brendan comes up with this narrative. Oh, no. Steve and I, we actually drove the back way down the Western Berm. Guys, any comments? We all good?
Well, again, I think that, I mean, we're already, we're to May 13th, but way back in, a couple of months earlier, these guys, I think they knew he didn't have shit to do with it. Else, why else would they go back to do this other major interview and want their foot back in the door? Again, I feel certain this was 100% a setup. Now, I'm not going to say that Fassbender and Wiegert knew that this was coming, but I suspect they did because of all the communication that Kaczynski and O'Kelly did with him. They copied them on every damn email. There was no privacy at all. There was no loyalty to Brendan.
No.
So,
no. But both of them, Kaczynski and O'Kelly, basically thought that Brendan Dassey was guilty.
yeah.
And Kaczynski and O'Kelly were supplying information to Kratz, hey, go check this out. You might find this, against their own client, right? So if we ever look at the next slide, this is where it gets really interesting, right? So this is another perspective of what Brendan drew. And if you look at the red line, they take the RAV4 out of the garage, they drive along the cornfield, and then they turn down the Western Berm, and they go the back way. And remember what Fassbender, now we believe you. Teresa is now, she's happy. You're now telling the truth. But this completely contradicted what Brendan said on March the 1st, that they drove the other way past Chucky's. Now, those of you who are astute are going, the Western Berm. Wait a minute. Wasn't this activity of both Loof, of both Brutus? Didn't they show activity on the Western Berm? Is this actual proof that what Brendan said was true? Right? Jack 61, I don't recall any comments so far. And people in chat. Could this potentially confirm Brendan Dassey correct? What Loof was doing, what Brutus was doing, because they showed activity at the Western Berm, Jack 61.
Yeah, I guess, but again, all of this, he's just guessing.
Yes.
And, I personally feel like, again, he's basing all this basically what they're force feeding him. Don't think, Brendan. Just answer. Just don't think. When they've already told him what they want, the narrative they want, and plus everything else that he's heard in the news that we already talked about, they should have called it and said, "Look, this kid don't know shit."
Exactly. Exactly. Now, do you have the next clip, Jack 61? It's only a short clip.
I do.
Yep.
Wait a minute. We got.
Yep.
Hey, looky here. We've got Kay. Kay's here.
Ah, awesome. Welcome,
hey, Kay.
Hey, sorry, guys. Better late than never, maybe?
That's right. Well, once you brought dinner, everything's good. All's forgiven.
Oh, man. I did. I brought it.
Welcome. So this clip was when Stephen Avery was interviewed on November the 6th. The reporter went down to Crivet. Remember, Brendan's there too. And his brother's there, Chuck's there. They're all listening in. And it's very interesting what Stephen Avery says. All right, take note. We'll just wait for that little clip to come up.
Yeah, it's going to start playing as soon as I pop it up. So here we go.
Have you talked with the rest of the family? Is there any idea how that car might have ended up back there?
No, nobody knows. Thursday night, me and Chucky, my brother, we had to go to Menards, pick up some wood to burn up. But then I seen taillights back by me. So I told my brother to turn around. So we went. I looked, took the flashlight out of the flatbed, and shined all over by my place, but I didn't see nothing.
But you think there was a car back on your property sometime?
Yeah, sometime Thursday night. Well, I seen taillights. Taillights don't come from nothing, But then I never thought of it, and we just left and got the wood and that, came back. But then he went up north Friday night. So he called me when he left, and he seen lights back by him, some headlights. So he gave me a call and told me to check it out. So I went and checked it out, and I called him back. Didn't see nothing, So I just left it, which I should have checked the whole junkyard. I should have. But I haven't been down in the junkyard for quite a few days, almost that whole week. I haven't been down there. So last time I was down there was Friday afternoon with my brother, And that was only for a minute.
Do you think that the police are checking over everything of yours in an effort to clear your name, or do you feel like they're trying to finger you as a suspect?
Probably as a suspect.
Incredible. Now, think about this. Notice what Stephen said about seeing the tail lights. How about if Brendan heard the same thing? His uncle talking about tail light. And what did he say? Near my trailer. And what did Brendan say? The cabin. He was talking about the trailer, that the car went straight down because he saw tail lights. Could it just simply be that Brendan Dassey just plucked that narrative out of the air and just repeated it to Fassbender and Uyghur? But before you comment, Jack 61, notice what Stephen said. I saw the tail lights. My brother saw the headlights, but he said one important thing. He said that Friday I was down there with my brother. He's talking about the pit. So Stephen was actually down the southeast corner with his brother. Didn't see anything, Jack 61. Interesting clip, wasn't it?
Very interesting clip, And he said, how did he put it? I should have went all around the yard, but I didn't.
Correct. And mind you, remember that Stephen went down with who did he go down with? He went down with Bobby Dassey to the.
That's right. That's right, Bobby. Yep.
He went to the southeast corner. Isn't it interesting that now, when you look at the clips, the old clips, with the knowledge that you've got now, how things take on a different perspective. Now, from the way Stephen talked, did he show any signs of guilt? Was he hiding something? Could you tell from his manner, his demeanor, was he hiding anything, or was Stephen being absolutely honest? Jack 61.
Well, I don't know about Cherie, but I mean, just watching him, his mannerisms didn't indicate to me that he was lying. He was looking straight at the guy for the most part. He wasn't like looking down at the floor and doing some other things that are really more telltale. I'm not saying everybody, but it happens. It's a true thing, the phenomenon. People,
Yep.
when they're lying, there's some kind of tick or something that will make you go, well, what the hell are they doing? Looking at the floor while you're talking.
Interesting.
Trying to think of it. Trying to think of what to say to lie. Anyway.
Yep.
Yeah.
Interesting. I don't recall. What are your impressions of what Stephen said?
I didn't see deception at all.
Okay. Interesting. Katie, what about yourself? What did you think of the clip?
Yeah, I mean, usually when people are stressed because they're lying, they're doing things like blinking a lot, just tells like that. I don't see that. He seems really straightforward. He seems concerned, which he should be concerned.
Yes.
If he thinks they're framing him. But yeah, I don't see deception at all.
Interesting. If you actually go to the comment section of that video, it's divided. The opinions are divided. Some say Stephen knows absolutely nothing. He's got no idea. 2, he's a killer, he's a murderer, he's a rapist, and he's a psychopath. Like, the comments are split down the middle. 2, I don't see any deception. 2, he's as guilty as, you know what I mean. It's incredible that there is no consensus in anything in this case. Katie, do you have a comment?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting when you don't know the tells, you don't know what someone's body language is like when they are lying. If you don't know that person personally, then that's the kind of stuff that you get. I mean, it's no different than Daniel Holtzclaw's 2-hour interview. It's exactly like you say, Doc. You look at the comments and it's split down the middle. People think he's exactly where he belongs, or they think, oh my gosh, they convicted an innocent man. It's bizarre.
Interesting. Yeah, very interesting. Jack 61.
I was just going to say that, if someone believes, they're dead set he's guilty, I think they read what they want to read into it. I'm not saying all of them, but you have to take these things on their own, to me. You can't just lump everything that you think about someone and then apply that to somebody giving an interview. You have to take the interview as it is. And to me, you compare that to the Scott Blodorn interview when he's looking at the floor this is early on in the case, he's looking at the floor talking. It's crazy. To me, that showed clear deception. Something's going on, or he's hiding something. That's what I took out of it.
In fact, the detectives even noticed that on Scott Blodorn.
I did.
Right? His demeanor. Whereas I think Stephen appeared to be very matter-of-fact, very honest, and willing to open up. Remember, he didn't have to have a reporter there, but to me, he looked genuine. But it's interesting, the comments are split, and I'm sure even in our chat, they're going to be split. So what I thought was, okay, we spent ages looking at the canines, right? Brendan Dassey now says, oh, no, we went this way down the Western Berm. So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. This is very, very interesting, right? And even on convicting a murderer, they talked about the activity on the Western Berm. But there's major problems with this, right? So these are the tracks that Loof did. Loof is a bloodhound. Loof detects the live scent of Teresa Hallbach, right? So Loof was scented from the scent of Teresa Hallbach's shoes and told to go find. Now, if you have a look what Loof did on November the 7th, this is track 3. Loof starts at the car that Stephen had up for sale, the van, and Loof goes straight across the cornfield. Loof completely bypasses the Western Berm, goes straight across, goes to the cul-de-sac at Cuss Road. Pagel says, whoa, you can't cross the police line, and stops right there. So notice Loof does not track to the western berm. Now, you might say, yeah, but Bear was there. No. Bear was nowhere near the western berm. So the scent dog, should have done a turn, gone straight down to the western berm. Guys, would you agree? If Loof was following live scent, Loof would have gone straight down that western berm. That's where the strength of the scent should be, Jack 61.
Absolutely agree with that.
Right? Because it's a live scent dog. Then, on the same day, after Pagel said, whoa, you can't cross here, right, the police tape, Loof did track 4 on November the 7th. And if you have a look, it's on the right-hand side. What Loof does is go around the deer camp, right, but then heads straight down south and then heads west in a totally different direction, comes back and ends up in the quarry. So again, the dog does not track to the western berm, right? So here are 2 tracks, same day. Loof does not track to the western berm. But something happens the day after. So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, right? So on the next slide, on the right-hand side, this is November the 8th. What happened one day prior to this, Jack 61? On November the 7th, what happened?
Cuss Road.
Cuss Road happened, right? Look what Loof does this time. So Loof starts at the van, so same track. This is track 6. Starts at the van, goes straight across the cornfield, goes to Cuss Road. Loof does not go directly to the western berm, goes to Cuss Road, goes to the deer camp, circles the deer camp, but this time tracks across the pond in the quarry, goes to the western berm, goes up and down the western berm, but note part of the western berm. Loof does not track all the way down the western berm, stops at the western berm, then goes into the property and eventually does some crisscrossing and eventually gets to the RAV4. But if Teresa's live scent, now remember, we're talking about live scent, if the live scent was anywhere near or down that western berm, Loof would have tracked all the way down, right? Also, Brutus, who's a cadaver dog, is not specific for Teresa Hobart. Loof and Brutus, and I think the other cadaver dogs, showed interest in the western berm. But the problem is they never found a scent source. They never found an item of clothing, a purse, a blood, nothing. They found no scent source. So, yes, there was some tracking to the western berm, but we don't know what that means. Now, I've discussed this with professional dog handlers, canine dog handlers, and we're wishing we've got one gentleman lined up to come on a podcast who's he works in law enforcement and he's a professional canine dog handler, but he's extremely busy because he's working on cases. But I've had discussions, right? And if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, if you look at all the dog tracks, all of them, what you notice is on the yellow side, the bold yellow track on the right-hand side, there are no dog tracks there. No dogs track to that particular region. That's when Brendan Dassey said, on March 1st, that's where my uncle and I drove the RAV4. There are no dog hits there at all. So if you look at the dark, heavy red arrow towards the middle of the page, there is no dog that goes straight down. They go straight down the western berm. If you look at all the dog tracks, all of them, what is disturbing is this. There's a concentration around Stephen Avery's property, and that's to be expected. because that's where Teresa Hallbuck was when she took the photograph of the van. But there's also a concentration of hits at Cuss Road, and there's also a concentration of hits at the deer camp, because you can see there are several tracks around those locations, but there is no dog track that goes all the way down and follows the exact same path that what Brendan said. So the question is, what are the dogs actually following? What are they tracking? Jack 61, I don't recall. Katie, any comments? What can you make out of all these dog tracks?
You know, after everything that we've heard and information we've gotten from people that do this work,
Yes.
it's almost like the bloodhounds got confused, picked up another strong scent. I don't know that, and I can't say that with 100% proof at all. I'm not saying that. I'm just saying that is a possibility. That's what we've heard for sure.
Correct, but don't you find it intriguing, guys, that the majority of the tracks are off the Avery salvage yard?
Oh, absolutely, yeah. I mean, we absolutely.
They're not on the Avery salvage yard. The majority
Right.
of them are off the property, right?
That's right.
Now, I've read professional scientific papers on the canines, but I'm not a dog handler, but I understand the chemistry, how they work. And I've discussed this with professional canine dog handlers. And he said, there are so many variables that a lot of this information is pretty well close to useless unless the dog finds a scent source, as in cremains, blood, bone, tissue, a purse, a personal item. The dog handler says, unless you find a body, you don't know what the dog is tracking. Would you guys agree?
Yes.
Yep.
Absolutely. Yep.
So you got to be very careful how you must not over-interpret, but visually you can see a lot of the activity was off the property, right? So no dog can actually back up Brendan Dassey with that narrative of going all the way down the berm. No, if you had hyperactivity of Loof, of Brutus, that go straight down that berm and go all the way at the back and follow it all the way back to where the RAV4, you go, oh, wow, okay. But here's the problem. If you look at the next slide at Jack 61.
Before we move off the dogs, there was one more comment I wanted to add. And this is something that it didn't bother me for a long time until really we got into Sarah Falsk and everything that she said in Cam. And rethinking this, she didn't get to the property until the 7th. So here we are 8 days after the fact. And this dog is allegedly picking up Teresa's scent. We know this rained really hard at least once. I know it rained twice that day, but it rained really hard that one time on the 5th when they found the RAV.
Correct.
The question became, and I think for you too, Doc, how long does this live scent last? How can these dogs pick up this track after all this inclement weather outside? And
correct.
Right?
100% correct. We can spend several hours talking about that, but we're not professional dog handlers, right? That's why we're gonna wait till a real dog handler comes in and talks about all the problems. But you can go to the scientific literature, and this diagram absolutely summed it up perfectly. And that is, there are a huge number of variables that influence the way a scent dog can track, right? And you have a look on the left-hand side, all the problems you need to take into account, how stable the scent is, whether it is dissipated by the weather conditions, by wind, by rain, by the buildings, by the terrain, right? How it was collected. Could it have possibly been contaminated? Are people walking in and out? Did Sarah Falsk herself accidentally contaminate the tracks, right? So it depends on many factors. Also, where you get your scent source. Was it properly contained? How was it stored? Is there any possibility of cross-contamination? So that's why the question that the dog handler said to me and said, look, did they actually find the body? No. Did they actually find a scent source like blood, tissue? No. What about the cadaver dog? What did the cadaver dog do? Well, basically, Brutus walked by the burn pit, right? Now, if these dogs have got an incredible sense of smell, right? Brutus went past the burn pit. Now, yes, Bear was there, but if the over sense of smell, if he was overcome by the strong sense of smell in the burn pit, the dog would have wanted to go to the burn pit. Remember, Bear was on a leash.
That's right.
And just to prove to you that there was nothing wrong with Brutus, he picked up the human decomposition in 2 burn barrels, the under burn barrels, which were many, many meters away. And so all the hits that Brutus did was 100% correct. He detected the human decomposition in the RAV4. He detected the blood in Stephen Avery's trailer. And he detected the bone fragments, or we don't know if there were bone fragments there that night, but he detected human decomposition in the burn barrels. He's 100% correct. Yet he walked straight past the burn pit. Jack 61.
Yeah, that was you brought up another interesting point, and that's about thinking about how many dogs and handlers were on in around that property.
A lot.
And remember that? You remember that that open records request I shared with you and Duke the other night?
Yes.
They're even more that we'd never even heard of.
That's
I
correct.
never heard of these. I don't know where these names come from. That tells me there's more reports that we've never seen.
And photographs.
And definitely photographs, absolutely.
Right? So here's the problem, right? You can't back up what Brendan said, right? If you look at the dog tracks, I know there's a lot of issues with the dogs. You can't back up his narrative.
No way.
Had Brendan said, me and my uncle, we drove to Cuss Road, do you think that would have been red flag for Fassbender and Wiegert?
Huge red flag.
Yep. But guys, here's the dilemma. The state have said nothing took place at Cuss Road. So all of a sudden, they now can't flip and say, oh, you and your uncle drove to Cuss Road, did you? Well, we found A, B, C. They can't. They're trapped. Nothing occurred at Cuss Road. So interesting, isn't it? Guys, any comments?
There's a few comments rolling by. I'm trying to highlight these guys as I can. I apologize later if I've missed any cues, but yeah, we've got there's still some conversation going on.
Excellent. I think what we'll do, guys, we won't do the entire podcast as we originally, because there's too many slides. So we'll do a few more, and then we'll call it quits. And then in our final podcast, we can sum up this chapter. Is everyone happy with that, guys? Yeah?
Works for me, Doc.
Okay, awesome.
Yes.
Yeah, awesome. Because there is a lot of information that
there is
a huge amount to take in. All right. So remember, we started off with asking, what did Brendan know about the RAV4? What did he know about the license plates? Did he have first-hand knowledge? My conclusion so far is no. He never said anything that was unique, right? And we looked at the dog tracks. The dogs don't back up either orientation, right? There are no hits in the yellow path, and there's sort of like activity on the western burr, but the dog doesn't go all the way down, right? Brutus doesn't go all the way down. So it's a very mixed bag. So Jack 61, we have a look at the next slide. This is where it gets really intriguing, right? So we know where the license plates were found, right? And I'll show you all the pictures. They were found in a station wagon, dumped. Now, the question is, who dumped the plates? right? Now, Brendan, correct me if I'm wrong. Did Brendan Dassey ever say, me and my uncle, we walked past and my uncle dumped the plates in the station wagon? Did Brendan Dassey ever say that?
Not once. Not one time.
No, no. And remember, the two guys were together. And what did we could say? You were there with your uncle. What did he do with the plates? And the answers range from, I don't know, to he placed them in his house. And after that, I don't know what he did. Now, let's think about this. Would Stephen separate the plates from the RAV4, take him into his house, then take him from his house, go down the gravel pathway, fold them up, and then throw them in the back of the station wagon? Why?
Makes absolutely no sense at all. No sense at all.
Jack 61, if he holds onto the key, why?
Right.
Why would you potentially expose yourself of saying, oh yeah, Steve, didn't I see you go towards this vehicle here? It makes no sense. Katie, what's your opinion? Why would Stephen dump those plates in that station wagon in an open manner?
No, that's illogical. I mean, that just doesn't even, that doesn't make any sense at all. I mean, you'd think he would have learned a thing or two being in prison all those years about how to be a criminal. I mean,
Yep.
he already knew how to be a criminal, but
Correct.
it's just ridiculous. I mean, the whole thing is.
Correct. But look at this. Look at this. Say Stephen is guilty.
Yeah.
He brings the RAV4 down to the pit. He's going, I'm going to crush this. Why then does he take the keys, the plates, the electronics, and spreads them out? Why not break the phone, turn off the battery, remove the battery, all the electronics are dead, smash them, keep them all together, put them under the seat of the RAV4. That means that everything is in the one spot. What happened to him? The police went to his house, right? A plane flew over the property. Are you trying to tell me that things didn't tweak in his head? Oh my God, they're looking at me. So have a look at this. If he was going to crush the vehicle, okay, I understand you got to remove the plates. That's a given. But why separate them? Why not put everything underneath the back seat? Keep everything together. You don't need a key to crush the vehicle. You need an end loader because you need to place it in the crusher. And Kratz's argument was, well, it was too far away. That's why he needed the key to drive it, which is complete garbage because these end loaders are big, powerful. Picking up a RAV4 is going to be no issue. So look what Stephen did. If Stephen is guilty, he dumps the RAV4 and does not hide it properly, leaves identification on the RAV4. So from above or from a casual person walking in the property, they can see the color, the make, the model. And it's got a big fat RAV4 sign at the back. Stephen decides to leave it like that with Brendan. Stephen takes off the number plates, grabs the key and all the electronics. And if you notice, all of that material is around his property. And if Stephen is guilty, then he cremates Teresa Hallbach 10 feet from his back door. So all the forensic evidence is behind him. So that means that Stephen did nothing to hide the crime because everything was out in the open. Guys, would you agree?
Yeah, and takes off to Crivets an hour and a half away and just leaves it. All this stuff laying around.
Yep. And
yeah.
Right. Believe me, right? Believe me. Instead of saying, maybe I better tell my brother, hey, look, I'll stay I've got a few things I've got to get done. I've got to ring up my attorneys or whatever. Don't worry, I'll look after property. No, he goes to Crivets as though nothing has happened. But look where the plates are. The plates downstream, guess who's downstream? Bobby, Brendan, and Stephen.
That's right.
Have a look what Kratz says. Right? Now keep in mind where the plates are. Look what Kratz says in his opening statement in the Brendan Dassey trial. Katie, do you see that?
I do.
Yeah. Would you like to read it, please?
The second important finding on the 8th was Teresa's license plates. These are found in a junk vehicle, kind of on the path on the way to Stephen Avery and Brendan Dassey's residence. When Teresa's license plates removed, Teresa's license plates removed, as Brendan said? Absolutely. We find the license plates in a junked vehicle.
2 points. Who did he forget to mention is in the same house as Brendan Dassey? Who didn't he say?
Bobby.
Dassey. Why? Because not to draw any attention to Bobby. Because Bobby was a state star witness in Stephen Avery's trial. But notice what he said. Of all the gobbledygook that Brendan said about the plates, Ken Kratz is going, oh, yeah, he told us. He told us the plates were removed by Stephen. Can you believe that? Despite the fact that Brendan completely contradicted himself, right? He now says it as a fact. Remember what Kratz said, guys? Was Brendan there? Yes. Did he help? Yes. So he's making these big, far-reaching statements. You've listened to the interrogations. Brendan was all over the plates. And Crockett Thompson is correct. The information was asked by Wiegert. Who removed those plates? Did you remove the plates? No. Well, who did? Well, Stephen must have. So Brendan always defaulted to blaming Stephen, because obviously if Brendan didn't do it, well, the investigators told me they know what happened, so it must have been Stephen. So notice what Kratz is doing here. He totally avoided Bobby Dassey. Guys, do we have any comments? Are we all good? Yeah? All right.
Yeah, I think we're good to go.
Yep. All right. So Jack 61, if we can have a quick look at the next slide. There's no need to read it out. The actual number plates were found by a firefighter by the name of William Brandeis. Now notice the date of the report. It's the 7th of December. The number plates were found on November the 8th, right? So Wiegert had to chase up the firefighter who found the plates and said, mate, what actually happened? And so he found the number plates. William was with a state trooper. William discovered the number plates at 9:15 in the morning on November the 8th. And what he did was he reached into the vehicle, picked up the number plates, unwrapped them, asked the state trooper, oh, what numbers are Teresa Horbach's number plates? Oh my God, we found Teresa Horbach's number plates. So what he then does is he places the plates back in the car. Does anyone want to comment how long it took the crime lab to come and process the car? 3 hours. 3 hours for Erdl and his team to come and process the number plates.
Wow.
So
Did they delay in calling them again, or just
possibly? So they found Teresa's number plates, prime evidence. Took 3 hours for Erdl to get down there and to photograph her. But the problem is this. They picked up the forensic evidence. Now, he said He said that, oh yeah, I was wearing gloves, right? Could you imagine if he said, no, I wasn't wearing gloves? Potentially could have contaminated the plates, right? So
Yep.
instead of calling the investigators, look, I found number plates. What do you think? No, he picked them up and unraveled them, right? So I reckon he must have partially seen what the numbers were, because you can see the numbers from the back, but he opened them up, put them back in. It took the crime lab nearly 3 hours to get down there and photograph it. But we get asked Williams, I think you better write a report. Look what he said right down the bottom. He goes, I did request William to go to the brilliant police department and meet with Officer David Jager and fill out a written statement. Right? What the hell? Jack61, any comments?
Well, I got to wonder why it wasn't done, that day or the day after. I mean, this is a month later. It's just ridiculous, man.
It's crazy. So if we have a look at the next slide, you can see the picture of the actual plates where they were found, right? They were found in the back seat of this vehicle, of the station wagon. And the big question on my mind is, why would Stephen, if Stephen is guilty, why would he separate the plates from the RAV4? Now, I understand the argument is, well, look, you got to remove the plates from the vehicle if you're going to crush it. I understand that. But why not just simply put the plates underneath the RAV4 back seat or underneath the seats, keep everything together if your plan was to crush the vehicle? But what is completely crazy is, why would you dump the plates in an open car with a broken window on the back seat? Do we have any comments? Why would you do that?
I can't make it work. I don't know, Doug. I mean, other than they needed to be found.
Right.
Yeah,
Exactly.
I agree. Katie.
Exactly. Whoever put them there so that they would be found easily. And they were.
Yep. So if you think about it, right? You think about it. You've got the RAV4 and you've got the vehicle where the plates are. They're both on the periphery. Anybody walking by, casually looking in, because remember what Pagel said. Pagel wanted the citizen searchers to come on the property to have a look around. All they had to do was poke their head in that back window and they would have seen number plates, right? And when you stamp number plates, you can see the numbers in reverse from behind. Yeah, they would have easily seen 582. Said, what the hell? These are Teresa's number plates, right? Bring in the cavalry. But if you look at the next picture, Jack 61.
Before I move to that one, Duke had made a comment above when we started talking about these and it being on the 8th. And he said basically, if those plates had been in that car the day before, they would have found them. Because remember, the cars, they had already been looked. The cars had already been searched.
Yes.
And they did it, and then they went back and did it again.
That's 100% correct. Yes, they already, I think on the Sunday, they popped open all the hoods. The fire brigade came, popped open all the hoods. They checked all the vehicles. And they had cadaver dogs check the entire salvage yard.
Yes.
The entire salvage yard. And it's interesting because if Stephen took off the number plates and allegedly he was bleeding, these cadaver dogs are very, very sensitive. There were no hits on that car, right? Interesting. But what's intriguing, and I've spoken with Susan about this could be a total coincidence. But Stephen said to the detective, I think it was Detective O'Neill, look, I wanted Teresa to come back in the afternoon because we've got an end loader for sale, right? And lo and behold, there's the end loader, because he said next to the blue garage. Downstream from the end loader, and there's police tape, downstream from the end loader is the station wagon where the number plates are placed in, right? How weird, right? So imagine if the detectives went to go and check out the end loader, say, well, was Stephen actually telling the truth? And they continued their searches around the end loader, bang, they would have found the number plates. So my conclusion is this. I agree with Katie, I agree with everyone, and possibly people in chat. The RAV4 and the plates were left out in the open to be found. Guys, prove that I'm wrong. Prove that I'm wrong.
I have to agree with you. That's the only thing that makes sense in any of it. But again, I think what you said earlier, if Stephen did all this other stuff, put stuff in the back of the RAV, why didn't he just put the plates back, roll them up or whatever, just throw them under the back seat? Be done with it.
Now, you might think, oh, come on, that can't be right. Guys, do you remember what Brendan said about the knife and the gun? The knife that they used to stab, slash Teresa Horvath, cut off her hair, and the gun that they allegedly used to shoot Teresa 10, 11 times. Do you remember what Brendan said, where they put the knife and the gun?
The knife, he said, was under the front seat or front passenger seat of the RAV. I can't remember where he said he found the guy they put the gun.
In the RAV. Now,
Jesus Christ.
Now, this is unbelievable. Why would Brendan say they placed the knife and the gun in the RAV4 and then Stephen Avery removes the key, electronics, and number plates? If they put the murder weapons or weapons used to torture Teresa Horvath, to cut Teresa Horvath, why would they put them in the RAV? And the answer is, well, crush everything, get rid of all the evidence, right? Then why would you remove the number plates and the key and the electronics and then burn them in a burn barrel and just leave them there? Do you see the contradictory nature of what Brendan is telling, and that the narrative of the state makes no sense? Now, I know that Stephen isn't the sharpest tool in the shed, but he's not that dumb. As Katie said, he's been in prison a long time, right? Why would he leave all this forensic evidence out in the open when Brendan said, we put the knife underneath the seat? And Jack 61, correct me if I'm wrong, what did the investigators do several months after? Where did they go? Where did they get to the RAV?
I'm sorry?
The investigators actually went to the RAV after
results. Oh, yeah. Yeah.
And they underneath the seat.
But yeah, that makes absolutely. They knew that the crime lab had the seats out of it.
Yep. They went back just to make sure that they didn't miss a knife, right? And of course, they never found the knife. The knives were confiscated from the Avery property, from Stephen Avery's trailer. They tested them, found nothing. Nothing of Teresa Horvath on them.
How do you miss a knife?
Yeah.
Come on, man.
Yep, correct. So Brendan is giving him rubbish, and they're lapping it up, going, oh my God, let's check this. Is there any evidence? No. Oh, we got to check that. Is there any evidence? No. So everything turned out what Brendan was saying to them as a negative, right? But look what Buting asked Culhane in court, right? Should we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61? Who would like to read out Buting, which is the question, and who would like to read out the answer, which is Culhane?
I'll read one.
Okay.
Yeah, I can do Buting.
Okay, do Buting, and Katie, if you can do Culhane, that'd be great.
All right. You also were asked to look at a license plates that were recovered.
Yes.
2 of them, right?
Yes.
2 of them that, at least your understanding were the license plates originally on that RAV4.
That was my understanding, yes.
And you didn't find Mr. Avery's DNA on that, did you?
No, I did not.
What the hell? What the hell?
It's those gloves he was wearing.
Well, he put them on, took them off, put them on, took them off.
But did Culhane actually let it slip out that she's got a partial profile from the plates that's male and it's not Stephen?
Right. That's a problem.
How could Culhane say no? Wouldn't the correct answer be I didn't extract enough DNA to come to a conclusion? She said, no, I did not. That's exactly what she said with A23, right? I didn't find Stephen's DNA in the back of the RAV.
Yep.
So Kathleen Zellner's going, shit, there's DNA on the number plates, low level, male DNA. Culhane in court says, no, I did not. So that's why Zellner wants the RAV4, the plates, and the blinker light, because someone picked up the blinker light, put it in the back of the RAV, someone picked up the plates, folded them, placed them in the vehicle. Culhane just said in court, no, I did not. Any comments, guys?
I hope Zellner can get them and send them to that place for retesting.
Do you think the state are going to give Zellner the plates?
No.
Not without.
They can't find them, probably.
Yeah, gave them away.
They're lost.
Lost them. Can't find them. Don't know where they're at. Yes.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep.
If that happens, that could become a real problem for the state. You know, I mean, I'm not really following it that close, but this Delphi case, you know, there's 70 pages of the investigation missing, interviews. They just can't find them. Just can't find them.
Yep.
It's terrible. It's terrible.
Yep. Okay. Cherie had to go. All right. So what we'll do a couple of more slides. Now, let's have a look at the next slide. So everything about the RAV4 and the number plates is bizarre, weird, and Brendan Dassey, in my opinion, is completely clueless. He's got no idea. He's just guessing and he's giving random answers. But here's the big problem, right? And that is Brendan Dassey actually gave two completely different versions of how the RAV4 got down to the pit. Guys, would you agree? Completely polar opposite directions of how the RAV4 got down to the pit, right? But here's the big problem. Now we've got Tom Sawinski and Thomas Baresh who are saying, no, I saw two people in a RAV4. Baresh is saying close to the Avery salvage yard on County Highway Q. But what is devastating, potentially devastating, and inculpating for, exculpatory for Brendan and for Stephen is what Tom Sawinski observed. Tom Sawinski said, I saw two males pushing a dark blue RAV4 up Avery Road on the morning of November the 5th. And then you have to ask the question, oh, wait a minute, how can Brendan Dassey and Stephen be driving the RAV4 at the pit on the evening of October the 31st if Baresh, Sawinski, and all these other people are saying, no, I saw the RAV4 off the property? Doesn't that tend to suggest that what Brendan Dassey was saying was just garbage? Jack 61, Katie.
Well, he was just guessing anyway. So, I mean, it's just clear he was trying to give an answer that would be satisfactory so he could go take his test or hand in his project or whatever that was.
Yep.
I mean, it wasn't. Oh, man, that interview. I just can't even watch it.
Yep.
It's horrible.
It's really difficult to watch.
It's upsetting.
It is upsetting. All of them.
Right. But here's a conflict. Here is and the state know this. Wait, Brendan just gave two different versions of how the RAV4 got down at the pit. Baresh and Sawinski are saying, nah, on early Saturday morning, I saw two people in the victim's vehicle, and Sawinski even named one of them as Bobby Dassey. Now, yes, witness identification can be tricky, especially in the early hours of the morning, etc., etc. But that's not the point. The point is he saw the RAV4 on Avery Road. Wait a minute. According to Brendan Dassey, the RAV4 is all the way down at the pit. What's it doing on Avery Road? Katie. Katie, do you have a comment?
Oh, sorry. No. Sorry.
All right. So let's have a look at the next slide. So if this is correct, what Tom Sawinski said, that he observed two people pushing the RAV4 down Avery Road. Well, as you know, Tom Sawinski delivered the mail, the newspaper, and left. Right? Let's assume that those two individuals pushed the RAV4, the red line that you can see down the bottom. They pushed the RAV4 all the way down the bottom and they parked it where it is. If they actually followed that path, that trajectory, the RAV4 would have been in the correct orientation, nose facing west. Guys, would you agree? As they naturally drive it in or push it in or whatever, the vehicle will be facing west.
Yep, towards Stephen's trailer.
Towards Stephen's trailer. Unlike what Brendan said, facing. Right. He got it wrong. He got and Fassbender goes, don't guess. Right? So they would have either naturally pushed it, or if the battery was still connected, they would have driven it. I've got a problem. A big problem. And people have pointed this out. Well, how did they know where to place the RAV? How did they know that they weren't going to be spotted? This is a big issue.
It's a huge issue.
Who knew that Chucky was not home?
The family. Maybe a few friends or something, but
yep. The family. Do you think two random strangers, as in people that don't know what the property is all about, could have just got the RAV4 and somehow magically fluked in the early hours of the morning of placing the RAV4 in a dark Avery salvage yard in the pit?
Yeah, that becomes a real problem, Doc.
Yep. The only thing that I liked about convicting a murderer is they made a couple of very interesting comments. And this was mainly Brenda. Brenda made this comment and Candy made this comment. They said, whoever did this had to have knowledge of the salvage yard.
That's right.
Right. Now, your argument would be, yeah, but Brendan and Stephen, they've got knowledge. Yeah, but Brendan and Stephen weren't the ones that were seen driving the RAV4 or pushing the RAV4, right? And I think one of the gentlemen said, now, it wasn't Brendan Dassey. Now, I understand that there are always going to be problems with identification, but it tends to suggest that whoever pushed that RAV4 down at the back, at the pit area, in pitch black, they had to know where they were going. But here's the interesting thing, guys. When they did the flyover the day before, law enforcement already had a 3D map of the Avery salvage yard in their head. Plus, if they did photography, which Jack 61 wasn't able to get any pictures, but if they took pictures, then they would have known the layout. But did they know that Chucky was not there? Right? Think about this. Whoever pushed that RAV4, how do you know that Chuck wasn't waiting for them with a shotgun? How did they know that there weren't guard dogs on the salvage yard? Right? How did they know there wasn't police waiting in the quarry? Because remember, the law enforcement flew over. They were definitely watching the salvage yard. Chucky and Brendan Dassey left. Stephen was still there. Dolores was still there, but Chucky was gone. Jack 61.
Yeah, and I think it's pretty well known that Chuck was pretty hot-headed to anybody messing around on the property because they had thieving going on and they were pretty vigilant about catching people and stopping the people coming in and robbing parts off instead of having to pay for them.
Correct, and that's why one of the neighbors, remember we read the DCI report, said, no,
Yeah.
that's not
Yeah.
Chucky. That's not Chucky.
No.
Natisky, I think. He said, no, Chucky would have gone immediately back. But he didn't. He phoned up Stephen. He phoned up, and Stephen and Bobby Dassey went down to the area, but they didn't go all the way down the pit. And we saw in that interview, Stephen goes, I should have checked the whole pit, the whole area, right? But he didn't. He went back, phoned up his brother, said, no, there's nothing down here, right? So I think you will agree that whoever, if they went down this route with the RAV4, they would have had to have known the property, right? Now, the argument was, oh, look, come on, two guys, they're pushing a vehicle. Oh, well, we don't know whether the battery was disconnected. But if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, you can see that if you look back where the red arrow is, if you just bring that up a little bit, the slope is down. It's a downhill slope, right? So it tends to suggest that they couldn't have just been pushing the RAV. Someone would have had to been in the RAV to either steer it and put their foot on the brake because it's downhill slope. That RAV would have gone.
Well, both. Actually, they would have had to have somebody operating the handbrake, the emergency brake, because they would have been picking up some pretty good speed coming up that little slope there.
Yep, 100% correct. So Kathleen Zellner's tweaked and thought, shit, whoever was pushing it or driving it would have had to have placed their hands on the steering wheel, on the brake, on the handbrake, all over the place. Did they leave their DNA there? Right? So was it Stephen? Was it Brendan? Was it somebody else? That's why Kathleen Zellner wants to get her hands on that RAV, because there could well be DNA still present in that RAV4. Jack 61, would you agree?
I would agree, and if I'm just hoping for it that it still exists as an entire car.
Yep.
And the Court of Appeals forces the issue. We'll see.
Correct.
It might be lost.
I have a feeling there will be a fire or a flood.
It's yeah.
Yep, 100% correct. If you look closely, you can see the crusher. And in the crusher, there's a car, right? So we'll do a couple of more slides and then we'll call it quits for today. We'll do the rest of the podcast next week. But there's been a lot of arguments about Stephen Avery or his intentions. He was going to crush the car, etc., etc. We look at the next slide. What you notice that in the crusher was a car, a blue car. Now, a cadaver dog, Brutus, checked the car, the crusher, or the crushed cars. Did the dog come up with any hits? Hey, we've got Duke. Welcome, Duke.
What's up, Duke?
What's up, guys?
Great that you made it.
Yeah, I'm glad to be here. Sorry, I'm just kind of popping in late, but figured
not at all.
Better late than never.
True.
That's right.
So in the crusher, there was a blue car. A cadaver dog checked it on the night of November the 5th. No hits. None. That didn't stop them. They took the car out. They opened it up. They got all the crushed cars. They opened them all up. They found nothing. But the argument is, and this is an argument that Kratz, Fassbender, Candace Owens, all of them, Stephen was going to crush the RAV4. But there's a lot of problems, right? The crusher belonged to Norbs. And don't worry, I've seen tons of videos on the actual process of crushing a vehicle. If you look very closely in that blue car that's crushed, the number plates are removed, right? And they've also removed the tires. But it's much more than that, right? So given you remove the license plates. You don't want to leave the license plates on there. You crush the vehicle. Someone can spot the license plate numbers. Hey, there's Teresa's RAV4. But if you're going to take the license plate numbers off, put them in the back seat. Guys, you can see that vehicle was crushed flat as a pancake. You can't see number plates if they're crushed inside the vehicle. Guys, would you agree? Right? It's all hidden. The vehicle's crushed. You've got other incriminating evidence in the car. Can't see a damn thing unless the vehicle is searched, open, etc., etc. But crushing a vehicle is not trivial, right? First of all, you've got to drain the fuel. You've got to drain the oil, the radiator fluid, windscreen wiper fluid, all fluids from the car. Because if you've got any fuel in the car and you crush it, you could potentially cause a spark, an explosion, a fire, drawing attention to yourself. So you've got to remove all of those things from the car. Furthermore, you've got to remove the gas tank, the radiator, the tires, the battery, catalytic converters if the car's got them, airbags because they can explode, and also mercury switches, which are toxic. So you've got to remove all of those. But not only that, Stephen Avery needed access to a mechanical hoist to lift the car up in the air, right? The mechanical hoist.
Or the end loader.
Or the end loader to get access to underneath. All those devices were right next to where his brother was in the office. They had those big blue garages and red garages that had hoists where they worked on the cars. Stephen's garage, as far as I'm aware, did not have that equipment, right? So they needed a mechanical hoist. They needed heavy equipment to dismantle all those parts, and they needed an access to an end loader, right?
Yeah.
Hey, you got sorry, Jack61.
No. I was just agreeing with you. Go ahead.
So you got both brothers there, the father, right? Other people on the property thinking, what the hell is Stephen doing carrying a RAV4? Oh my God, that's Teresa's car. What the hell is he doing driving around with an end loader carrying Teresa's car? Now, the argument was, well, Stephen was going to wait. What the hell is he waiting?
Exactly.
He went to Crivets.
That's right.
His brother Earl was on the property. His brother Earl did not prevent anybody from coming on the property to search the yard. Duke.
Well, yeah. Well, not only did he not wait, think about this. If he was, quote unquote, waiting, well, he had law enforcement at his place on the 3rd and the 4th.
Yes.
You think that would have been a signal like, okay, time not to wait anymore. Let me get out of town and I'll come back to it later.
I'll just leave all this shit laying around for you to find, but I gotta go to Cribs, guys.
Yep.
Come on, man.
And if you see the interviews with Stephen, he goes, I had 6 to 8 patrol cars at Crivets in my driveway and I could go nowhere. Plus, there were citizen searches all over the place, right? And how did Stephen know that they weren't going to bring a helicopter or another plane and do another flyover and observe who was going to the property? So exactly when do you think that Stephen was going to be able to crush this car with no one watching?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
No.
Yeah.
Dude.
And I'm glad you mentioned it because you had said it last week as well. And I wish I was around to reference this. But remember, when we talk about the police presence that was up in Crivets, you got to remember that there was a phone call between dispatch and someone out in law enforcement, I think on the 5th or 6th or 7th, somewhere around there. And the dispatcher said, in reference to the police presence around Crivets, she said, because they were talking about Stephen being back in Manitowoc and how there was a pedestrian that was scared that Stephen was back there, something along those lines. And she said, I didn't think that he was able to take a shit without us noticing up there.
Yep.
It was very well common knowledge that like they had eyes on him at all times.
24/7.
All times.
24/7. So this concept that somehow Stephen was going to get back to the Avery salvage yard and crush the vehicle is complete bullshit. Why? Because if you're going to crush the vehicle, you needed to have done it before she was reported missing. Guys, would you agree?
Right. And maybe he would have said, no, was it Earl? Hey, no, Earl, I'm not going to go to the auction with you today. I'm going to hang back, on the 4th. Like, nothing about his actions between the 31st and the morning of the 5th when he left for Crivets signifies that he was in any sort of concern to do anything outside of his normal routine.
Correct. 100% correct. But what people are forgetting is this. There were people that lived on the Avery salvage yard, and clients came in on the salvage yard all the time, right? Now, if Redont gave permission for searchers to come onto his property, how do you know that no one was going to poke their head over the berm and have a look inside the Avery salvage yard with binoculars, right? To get a bird's eye view. And you imagine if they went to the southeast corner and said, the car's right there, right?
Right.
Right. So this thing about Stephen was going to crush the vehicle makes no sense at all, right? If he was going to get rid of the forensic evidence, he would have driven the car off the property, put everything together, a couple of gallons of gasoline, a couple of flares, evidence gone. But the way it is, and you can comment, everything was left out in the open to be found, to be discovered, and it was very quickly too. Duke.
Yeah, I might sound like a broken record here because I haven't been here on the panel for a little while, but I just want to emphasize this as much as humanly possible. I can promise you, there's not many things that I can promise you about this case, right? There's so many things that are unknown. One thing that I could promise you with 100% certainty is that if that RAV4 was there on the 4th of November, we would be watching it on repeat on YouTube, on Kratz's Twitter, 24/7, every single day. The courts would have seen it.
Yes.
The fact that we have not seen that footage is because it 100% was not there on the 4th. Promise you.
I agree.
I agree. All the anecdotal evidence suggests that it wasn't there on the 4th. All the anecdotal evidence suggests that the vehicle was actually brought onto the property. What's even more disturbing is that Judge Angie is willing to accept it and attribute no blame to Bobby Dassey being in possession of the RAV. And we'll talk about that in a second. But the other thing, of course, that people forget was that Stephen was in the middle of a civil suit, a $36 million civil suit. And Jack 61 and the team are reading out the depositions. How did Stephen not know that his civil attorneys could have called him at any time? Oh, Stephen, we've got this strategy. Oh, Stephen, we want to talk to you about this, right? And somehow Stephen was able to put all of that aside, commit a brutal murder on someone that never did anything to him, and then expect to roll up to his civil attorney depositions. And guess who was up next? Who was up next on the chopping block, Jack 61?
The big boys.
The big boys, the former Sheriff Ferak and the former DA Dennis Vogel.
Yep. So, bang, one day before Tom Kacerik was going to face the music, Stephen gets arrested for a gun charge, right? This is rather remarkable, right? So when you factor all these things in, that remember, you've got Chuck, Earl, who used the crusher, and there's certain protocols that they follow. How long do you think it would have taken them to discover the smell of oil, petrol, all these fluids in the crusher had Stephen just put in the RAV4 and crushed it?
It'd been immediate.
Immediately. Plus that crusher is not theirs, right?
That's right.
It was the Norv's, right? So
I wanted to comment about the gun charge, Stephen getting arrested. And a lot of people, especially the newer people, I'm sure people have been around, don't know But Stephen had a legal gun license,
Yes.
and they had a cow about this. Deb Strauss ran through her ass to run this down. She talked to everyone about it because that was a problem. He had a legal gun license. Whether it's a mistake, whether it was a mistake or not, well, that's what I'm saying. But that's on them.
Correct. 100% correct, right? So there was a car already in the crusher. So if we have a look at the next slide, Jack 61. So this photograph was taken on November the 7th. I've seen a ton of videos on crushing of cars. Stephen Avery didn't have to remove that car there. The car that was in the crusher, he didn't have to remove it. All he had to do was put the RAV4 on top and crush that. So what they do is they normally crush 3 to 4 cars together at the same time. They pancake them, right? But in order to remove the vehicles and in order to place on the RAV4 in that crusher, you need an end loader. These machines are very noisy. Crushing a car is very noisy. Up the street from that crusher is the office of where Chuck Avery is. Now, Chuck Avery, they know every vehicle that gets crushed. They've got an inventory, but this is where the big issue occurs. So, if Stephen had committed this, he didn't have to remove that blue car. They would have taken a record of the vehicle that they crushed. Then Stephen would have put the RAV4 on top and crushed that as well. So if we look at the next slide, Jack 61.
Yeah, for people that don't know, when they crush a vehicle, there's paperwork that has to be filled out and sent to the state to say this car's gone, it's done.
Yes, 100% correct. If you look at the next slide, right to the left-hand side, there's the end loader, right? I'm not sure whether that's the Averys. I think the detectives, the investigators brought in their own heavy equipment. But this is what Stephen would have had to have done. He would have had to have used an end loader to remove the crushed vehicle. And you can see on the right-hand side, if Jack 61 blows up the picture, you can see that the vehicles are pancaked. There's 3 or 4 sandwiched together, right? So the argument is, oh, well, Stephen would have got other crushed cars and pancaked the RAV4 in there, and no one would have detected a thing. But if you have a look straight up from where the end loader is the office of where Chuck is, right? And you're trying to tell me that he wouldn't have heard the crusher or the use of the end loader moving vehicles in and out, right? So for Stephen to have crushed the RAV4, he would have had to have made sure that nobody was there, right? Otherwise, people would have heard it, maybe even people in the quarry. And because the cat was out of the bag, right? The police, as Duke said, the investigators and officers were at Stephen's property twice already. They flew over. They already flew over on the 4th, right? They would have had eyes on the property thinking, jeepers, how about if Stephen or some other family member sneaks back in, right? And what did Wiegert say on Saturday morning? We have a change. The boss has got a change in plans. So either he received a tip that they found the RAV4, or they were going to check the crushed cars, right, for signs of the RAV4. Okay, so possibly either one of these. Do we have any comments so far? Duke, do you have any comments? All good? All good? So have a look at the next comment. Have a look at the next picture. Guess where the end loader was? It was in the red shed, which is directly opposite the office of where Chuck is, right? You got the main office, then you've got the shed. Have a look at that end loader. That end loader is so big. See right in front of it, there's a four-wheel drive. The end loader would have no problems picking it up and taking the RAV4 from the pit to the crusher, which means that Stephen did not need a key. This notion, Kratz pushed the notion that Stephen required the key because he had to drive the RAV4 to the crusher and then use an end loader to load it in is complete garbage. It would have taken the end loader not even 1 minute to bring the car down. Guys, would you agree?
Absolutely. The key, it's ridiculous.
Yep. The key is completely ridiculous. So you've got this notion, wait, maybe Stephen didn't think about this, right? So if you look at the next picture, this gives it away, right? So in the next picture, you've got all the crushed vehicles in a row. Chuck Earl taking inventory of all the cars that are crushed, right? But here's the dilemma. There is a process, and I'll prove it to you, how the salvage yard gets rid of all the crushed cars, right? So the investigators already phoned up the scrap metal yards. Were you guys aware of this? They'd rung up the scrap metal yards and they said, have you received any scrap metal from the salvage yard?
Yep, I've read it.
Right? Which means this. Say they didn't find the RAV4. The investigators would have asked where the Avery family disposes of their crushed vehicles. They were already thinking ahead, right? So if they had noticed any crushed cars from the Avery salvage yard, they would have phoned them up and said, I think you might want to come and have a look at this, right? All they had to do was bring a cadaver dog, and that's it. Or check the VINs of the vehicle, because they wouldn't have removed any of the VINs. Boom, done like a dinner, right? So here's the problem. How was Stephen Avery going to get rid and dispose of the crushed RAV4?
He couldn't. There's no way.
Nope. In fact, it's worse. He now can't drive it, which means that he now needs another machine to transport it. Now, some people have argued, oh yeah, he was going to get rid of the crushed vehicle off the property. How in God's name is he going to remove a crushed RAV4 with searchers around the property, detectives around the property, him being watched 24/7, and he needs an end loader and also the tow truck? And where's he going to drive this when all of Wisconsin know they're looking for a RAV4? The answer is Stephen couldn't get rid of the RAV4. Now, some people might say, yeah, but maybe he could have buried it. The thing is, a cadaver dog, right? A cadaver dog can detect, I think it's 60 feet. It's a huge distance down below. Blood, human decomposition. The RAV4 contained Teresa's blood, Stephen Avery's blood. A cadaver dog would have detected it, right? They even drained the ponds, Jack 61.
They did, but taking that a step further, he would have looked mighty funny taking a backhoe or whatever they had on the property and digging out a pit, then going to get the end loader, load up the RAV, and taking it over and then covering it up. Somebody would have seen him around there. Somebody would have noticed.
Yep, correct. So this notion that Stephen ran out of time, no, he didn't run out of time. He had no idea what he was going. If he committed this murder, he had no idea what he was going to do with the RAV4, right? But when you factor in what Brendan said about the RAV4, the different routes, the number plates, no idea, right? And the fact that the number plates were separated from the RAV4 and placed in an open vehicle, how do you know if Stephen had removed, think about this, if Stephen had removed the RAV4 if it was Stephen, then potentially citizen searchers could have found the plates. And if they found the plates, that's just the same as having the RAV4 there, correct? Duke.
Yep.
Well, I mean, Doc, I think you're not thinking all the way through this, because what Stephen was probably going to do is bury the RAV and then put a stake there, throw Bear in the area, and he would have known for sure that law enforcement wouldn't have come near it because Bear was there. I mean,
That's funny.
he is the ultimate law enforcement detection. Like, just put Bear there, a dog, and you can guarantee the fact that none of the hundreds of law enforcement officers that are on that property will go near it.
Right.
Easy.
Oh, 100% correct. And plus, they were still doing aerial surveillance after the RAV4 was found, right? So nothing could prevent a helicopter or an airplane flying above, taking video, taking pictures. You had no control over that at all, right? And remember, when you saw in Making a Murderer, there were citizen searches absolutely everywhere. Now, did Earl stop Pam and Nicole Sturm from coming on? Did Earl stop later prior, David Beach? Did Earl stop the other couple coming onto the property before Pam and Nicole? No. Which to me tends to suggest that Earl had no idea the RAV4 was down there. No idea, right? And if he was complicit in the murder, he would have said, sorry, mate, this is private property, get off.
Yep. You're gonna need a search warrant.
You're going to need a search warrant. Correct.
Yeah, or he would have run and hid under a pile of clothes or something.
That is true. So the whole point of all of this, right? Kathleen Zellner, John Ferak, they've all had a look at this and said, this is crap. You can't say Stephen was going to crush it until you think it through. And when you think it through, now Stephen's got a massive problem, right? There is a protocol that the Avery Salvage Yard follows to get rid of crushed vehicles. Let me have a look at the next slide, Jack 61, right? So the investigators, I asked Earl, Chuck, I think even Stephen, oh, what do you do? What are the type of activities that you do? And I'll read it, right? This is what Chuck, I think this was the 5th. He goes, I log in all the vehicles, right, that come into the lot. The crushed vehicles are sold to Mushkin out of Manitowoc, Norbs out of Denmark. Norb hauls the vehicles that we crush. Hello? So Norbs would have come on. Oh, which vehicles do we need to pick up? The crushed ones? How long do you think it would have taken before Norbs or the detectives phone Norbs to say, have you got any crushed vehicles on the Avery Salvage Yard? We want to check them. Bring in the cadaver dog.
Yeah, it was pretty quick.
Done. So there was a protocol and there were a lot of crushed vehicles there. Norbs could have come along at any other time and say, right, we'll pick up your vehicles, and the detectives would have phoned them up. We want to check the scrap metal, please. So therefore, I don't think there was any intentions for Stephen to crush anything.
No.
He wasn't involved, and nor with Brendan. The whole purpose on that RAV4 was to be found. The whole purpose of the plates were to be found. The cremains in the burn pit, the electronics, everything was out in the open to be found. The key that Colburn shook the cabinet so violently that none of the coins and the spray and the paper fell off. And the key just went round the corner. That goes to show the madness of this case and how Kratz, I don't know how Kratz, Gunn, and Fallon sold this to the judge and the jury, because it's completely nuts, Duke.
Yeah, I mean, they're talking about two different people here. The first person that is able to eliminate not only from a simple eye test of any sort of DNA or evidence of a crime scene, but also to eliminate any sense of, they tore up everything in that trailer. They had cadaver dogs in that trailer.
Yes,
He was
I did.
able to eliminate, and as Fassbender said, scour that
Yes.
place
Yes.
so well that he eliminated any source of Teresa's DNA from that scene and his garage. And then you also have someone, a completely different person, that was trying to quote unquote hide the RAV by putting branches on it. Discard the cremains, but leave a pile in the center of his own burn pit.
Oh, correct. Correct.
We're talking about two different people.
Well, it also what it indicates is that there's a third party involved in the forensic evidence and dumping it there. That's what it indicates, right? And it is so obvious, but it gets worse, right? We'll do a few more slides, then we'll stop. They go and interview Earl, right? Because this is November the 5th, they find the RAV4. Now they're questioning family members saying, well, what do you know about this RAV4? How did it get there, right? So Jack 61, if we can have a look at the next slide, please. Right? So they question Earl. Duke, do you see that or you can't read it?
No, I see it.
Would you like to read it? So this is from Queso. We get questions, Earl, about the RAV. Let's go for it.
Sure. I asked Earl when the last time he would have been anywhere near where Teresa's vehicle was located, to which Earl stated it was last night.
Last night.
11/4/05. He and Stephen were down near the pond, which is directly north of where the vehicle would have been found, shooting and sighting in their rifle. He stated they were down there right before dark, and he did not notice the vehicle at all, but never really looked up there. I asked Earl if anybody would have walked up to where we had found Teresa's vehicle, to which Earl stated nobody had, including him or Stephen.
Remember what Stephen said in that little interview? Remember Jack 61? Oh, I was down there on Friday with my brother, Earl, but we were only there for about a minute. Obviously, I think Stephen was there more than just a minute because they were at the pond.
Yes.
They were at the pond. Now, think about this. If you're Stephen, would you go down with your brother where the RAV4 is found?
Not a chance. No way. If I was the one that put it there, no way.
They could have. Earl could have spotted the RAV4 saying, "Mate, does that look like what they're looking for? Oh my God, it is." The police would have been.
He could have and he would have. This is a car that would have stuck out like a sore thumb.
Yep. Now, what's interesting here, guys, is that Earl and Stephen were down there. They never saw the RAV, right? They knew, they know what the victim was driving, a RAV4, right? Was on the news. They knew. It also, this now complements the flyover. It corroborates the flyover because on the same day, and neither Drum, Pagel, or Baldwin saw the RAV4, right? Now, if we ever look at the next picture, you see how crazy this is. This is where they were. They're at the pond. And if you look at the yellow arrow, that's where the RAV4 was, right? Right there. Earl and Stephen were in the southeast corner at the pond. This is a picture from November the 7th. They never saw it. They never saw the RAV. They were right there at that spot. The flyover, none of them in the plane observed a RAV4, right? Remember, it still had that big RAV4 tire cover. No one saw it. So now you've got, are you trying to tell me that the killer of Teresa Hallbach happily goes down to the southeast corner at the pond with his brother, knowing full well that he left the RAV4 out in the open?
Not a chance. Not a chance.
That doesn't work at all, right? But Earl was questioned about this in court, right? We'll do a couple of more slides, then we'll call it quits. But have a look what Fallon asked Earl. Who would like to read Fallon, and who would like to do Earl?
I can do Fallon.
Fallon, who would like to do Earl? The answer.
Hey, I can't right now. Stacy's making a bunch of noise in the background.
Okay, Duke,
I can do it.
let's go for it.
All right. Okay. Now, were you surprised when they found this Toyota RAV4 that appeared to be Teresa Hallbach's vehicle?
Yes, I was.
And did you even have any idea that vehicle was there?
No. And I didn't. After I went down there to see what was going on, I still didn't know that it was down there. I still couldn't see it.
All right.
I was down there for an hour until they pointed it out to me. And then I finally seen it.
All right. You had no idea that vehicle was there.
No. It was like 2 days or 3 days before that. We were just through there rabbit hunting with my brother-in-law, and that vehicle wasn't there.
Wow.
Guys, how fucking ridiculous is this now? Not only was Earl there with Stephen, they didn't see it. This is a nice shiny blue car or green car. They didn't see it, and it had RAV4. And think about it, right? Remember what Earl did? Earl took trees using the end loader. Remember, he took mature trees that he was going to use at his property. Ertul said that he found trees with the roots still attached. Wait a minute. Someone picked up the trees and put them where the RAV was. How the hell can that be, Duke?
Well, remember, there was a call. It was an anonymous call. We never got the name of the person that called. But there was a tip during the week of, the investigation after the vehicle had been found, where this gentleman had suggested, hey, I'm sure you've looked at Earl in his place because he was digging up trees.
Yes.
There's a call associated with it. So
interesting, right? Very, very interesting. But here's the madness. He's just said that him and Robert Fabian were at the pond in that area. I think they drove past that area in the golf cart. They didn't see the RAV4 there.
Yeah, that's very interesting. I guess it's sometimes for them it becomes like forest in the trees, but if they were near that area, I just can't help but think that Earl and Chuck, maybe not Stephen because he hadn't been there quite that long.
Correct.
Been back. He might not have noticed, but or that some customer wouldn't have said, "Hey, what's going on with this RAV up here? That's pretty good."
Well, it's interesting that Fabian didn't see the RAV there, but he did see the RAV somewhere else.
Yes, at the turnaround.
He did.
At the turnaround. Correct. So let's just finish this off with a couple of pictures. This is going to blow your mind. So if you ever look at the next picture, this photograph was taken on November the 5th. Look where they are. They're at the pond. If you zoom back out, see the pond in front? That's where Earl was. That's where Stephen was. And that's where Robert Fabian and Earl were with the golf cart at the pond area. And this is a photograph of the RAV4 with a blue with a tarp on top, right? You can see the trees in front, the shrubs in front. You can see straight through. If you were there, the RAV4 was right in front of you. You can see straight through. You can see the two vehicles at the front, and there's the RAV4 at the back, tarped, right? Can you see it? It's not hidden, right? They covered everything up, right? So if you look at the next picture, again, it's from the pond, right? It's from the pond. And you can see the RAV4 straight between the two cars. Remember how we aligned up the RAV4 where it was in front of the station wagon that you see on the right-hand side. And when we looked at the frames, we couldn't see a car. We couldn't see the silhouette of a RAV4. That's on the Flyover video, right? But if you're at the pond, the RAV4 is directly in front of you, right between those two vehicles. No one saw it. No one saw it, right? Guys, do you have any comments?
They didn't see it because it wasn't there.
Yep.
That's my opinion.
Yep. But the next picture is going to blow your mind. Have a look at this one. Someone had a camera and took photographs of the RAV4, blow it up, Jack 61, with no tarp. You see it? No tarp. And Earl is sitting on his quad bike. He's right at the corner, the southeast corner, and the police asked him to stay right there for over an hour. They said, don't move. If you blow up that picture on the right-hand side, you can see the green truck to the right-hand side. Earl is in the southeast corner, and he's a little bit low, right? And remember what he said? He says, I couldn't see it until they showed me where it was. Look where he is, right? He according to Earl, he said, I never saw the RAV. But if you go to the left-hand side, someone from the pond took a picture of the RAV4 and there's no cover, no tarp. So someone's walking around with a camera taking photographs. Jack 61, do you know who took this picture?
I don't, Doc.
Me neither. Me neither.
There were so many. I mean, if you look back, especially early on, there were so many of them with a camera that there were. I don't know, Duke. What do you think? 8 or 9 at least, walking around taking photos. There's Reimer. There was Remaker, Colburn. That's the 3 I can think of off the top of my head. And then, of course, you had Reese, Judge.
State Crime Lab.
Zhang. And that other dude. I mean, there were so many taking photos. I really don't know.
Yep. Which means that there's got to be additional pictures.
Oh, I agree.
Of the RAV4 with no tarp on top.
I agree.
From the front and the back, more pictures than what Nicole took. This is not Nicole that took these pictures.
Right, and you know, we have to remember there was a period of time, like you're talking about, they had to go buy those tarps. So that RAV was uncovered for, Duke, how long? A couple hours?
Well, they bought the tarps, and by the time they covered it, because we can actually stamp the time right around the time that they covered it, thanks to all the information that we have now, and we know that it wasn't tarped until mid-afternoon.
Correct.
And when it was tarped, it was only tarped for about 50 minutes or so, maybe an hour.
Yeah.
But you know, we can timestamp that just about almost approximately, and it was mid-afternoon, probably 2:30, 3 o'clock, before it was tarped for the first time, and it was untarped about an hour later.
Correct.
You know, the unfortunate thing about the photos, and I'll just briefly explain this. If you look at the discovery email, the way that Kratz labeled them, it's really difficult to just send off to quesos and say, I want, S1 through S15.
Yep.
The reply comes back a lot of times, most of the time, in fact. Well, if that's an exhibit, you need to contact the Manitowoc County clerk.
Yeah.
Yep.
I've always had a hard time, Doc, believing myself that there aren't pictures
There's more.
by law enforcement of the inside of that vehicle while it was still
Yes.
on site.
Yes.
And
Yes.
if you notice the pictures
Yes.
that we do have of it in situ on site there, none of those images give us a look inside the vehicle, in particular at the front area where the blood might have been by the ignition.
That's right.
100% correct. Now, if we look at the next picture, this is a wider view of that photograph. This, I'll just wait for the photograph to come up. This is from the pond. This is right at the pond. You can see the RAV4, no tarp, and you can see an officer standing next to the white car looking at the RAV4, right? So isn't that interesting how Earl, Robert Fabian, and Stephen didn't see the RAV4? Uncovered. But they're at the pond. They're at the pond. And here's what's even more damning. An aeroplane flying up above would have flown directly over the RAV4.
Yeah, that's a point, Doc, to me that is indisputable. You cannot argue, to me at least, you cannot argue this point. What would make sense to me and what's understandable is, I think it'd be unlikely, but I could understand if once they found the vehicle there on the 5th, they said, holy shit, how do we miss this while we flew over here on the 4th? That would be unlikely, but it would be understandable. However, they took video. And so what they would have done instantly is said, well, we might have missed it, but let's go back to the video because we flew over here for 10, 15 minutes.
Yep.
And they would have gone back and they would have said, holy shit, that car is not there.
Yep. Correct.
That's what happened.
Correct, because they can debunk Sawinski, Baresh, and everyone else who saw a RAV4 by showing them one picture, one still.
Mm-hmm.
Here you go. The RAV4 is there. On the 4th, it's there. Go away. You're wrong. They haven't.
Right.
That shut me up.
Yep. And the final picture for today, our final slide for today, is a close-up of the RAV4. That is from, and you can see the Toyota. You can just see it through the, you see the wheel cover? You can just see it through the leaves, right? And so that's at the pond. So whoever's taken the pictures was at the pond area. And that is amazing that no one spotted it. And the obvious answer, the reason why no one spotted it, is because it wasn't there until the 5th. This is dangerous because it now leads support to what all those individuals saw, the RAV4 off the property, but it lends credence and support to Baresh and Sawinski about seeing two people driving the RAV4 close to the Avery salvage yard, and the damning observations of Sawinski saying that he saw two people pushing the RAV4 on Avery Road. It all makes sense. But the tragedy is that it also debunks Brendan Dassey, right? Completely debunks Brendan's story that Brendan was simply guessing. The guy had no idea, and the investigators know it. And that's why now the state are in a panic thinking, oh shit, if we give the RAV4 to Zellner for testing, whose DNA is going to come up now?
Mm-hmm.
Done.
Wait, remember, Doc, who was the first person, or I guess group of people, to go against what Brendan Dassey was saying as far as how the RAV got there? and that was law enforcement themselves when they told Redant that we believe that the RAV came from the opposite direction that Brendan Dassey says it came from.
But came from the deer camp, right?
Thanks to who? The dogs.
The dogs. Fassbender and we said to Stephen Avery on November the 9th, we know how the RAV4 came from the back way, but it came from the deer camp. And you know what Fassbender said? Because of the dogs followed your scent.
that was before they discarded the dogs.
And that's correct. We've never had Stephen Avery's scent, like live scent, right? So, in a way, that's why Fassbender's ears pricked up when Brendan goes, oh, no, we went this way and we went on the field. Fassbender's going, holy shit. Did they drive the RAV4 at Cuss Road down past the deer camp and went the back way? And Brendan said, no, we went on the western berm. Right? So Brendan could not tell a cohesive story or narrative, right? But this is intriguing, guys. Absolutely intriguing. All right. That's the last slide for today. I think we should leave it right here, guys. We've covered a lot, and I hope that you enjoyed the podcast. We certainly have covered a lot. Jack 61, Duke, what do you think?
Absolutely. We've covered a ton.
Yeah, I mean, you guys have covered a ton, and I'm really happy to be here for the tail end of it today. But this goes to everyone's favorite Occam's razor theory. What's the most simple answer to why we haven't seen an image of the RAV on the 4th on the Avery salvage lot? What would the simplest answer be?
It wasn't there.
It wasn't there.
Yep. And look, I have an awful feeling that Mr. Kratz knows this. He's peddling a story that cannot be supported. And I just showed to you that Brendan Dassey had no first-hand knowledge of the RAV4 or the plates. Everything he said, he got from the media or talking to his family, and he got a lot of things wrong. And the funniest thing, I laughed my head off when he pointed the pen in the wrong orientation. And Fassbender goes, don't guess. That's what Brendan was doing all along, guessing. Yeah.
Well, Doc and Duke, we have, I highlighted as many as I could catch. Some of these are probably a little bit out of order questions. If you want to do a few here, I think we can get them pretty.
Yep.
Alrighty. Here's the first one from Master Cedar. Does anyone know which TV companies televised the murder trial live?
I don't. But apparently it was recorded. The whole thing was recorded.
There were actually, I think there were at least two that did broadcast it live, and a third one that did broadcast part of it. Go ahead, Duke.
Yeah, I know that there was news coverage nightly around the trial itself. I know that at the time it was covered live. However, that footage of the whole trial itself is something that we don't necessarily have, but there are YouTube videos that have compiled all of the news coverage every single night of the trial that you could look at.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure that this live broadcast was sent out over the internet. I don't know if it was sent like on these different TV companies' website.
It was probably something that was broadcasted live and on the website. It was early on the website, but it was probably
it's on and now.
Yeah, available to them. I think it was like the local Fox and CBS or ABC stations, whatever those were.
I couldn't find it because you can see footage that you don't see in MAM. So it means that there are other camera operators that were there, right?
Yes.
And you see photographs of people being interrogated that you don't see in MAM. So there were photographers, there were videographers capturing everything. Correct. Yep.
All righty. Next question is from Clive Coolidge. I believe Ron Hilligus knew where the RAV4 was placed on November 5th. Thus, he told Pam Sturm and Nicole where to go and gave Pam Sturm a camera. She would not have gone that way on instinct. Well, I can't disagree with that.
There's something very, very fishy about Pam Sturm and Ryan Hilligus, and also Pagel. We covered it in previous episodes, and even Pam Sturmer said that there were 3 different paths that she could have gone, and depending on 2 of the paths would have taken her to the western side of the where the cars were, and it would have taken her 6 hours to find the RAV, because she said she was going to check every vehicle. The path that she took was the one that went straight down to the pit.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it always has concerned me. I think it was in the pre-trial where Ryan had said they were asking questions, I believe, around the why did you give Pam the camera or the map, that kind of stuff. And he said something to the effect of, when I was down there, my calls kept dropping. And
Correct.
That's always really concerned me.
Correct. And on November the 4th, he had 22 drop calls.
That Kathleen, in her investigation, said that most likely came from to and from law enforcement. Now, how she got that, we don't know. But for her to say that is significant, because she wouldn't say that without some sort of evidence to believe that.
Yeah,
Correct.
I agree. All right, another question from Clive. There is absolutely no evidence of any crime happening in Stephen's bedroom. No blood, no bodily fluids, no marks on the headboard post. As Teresa, as she was shackled and handcuffed, supposedly, total fiction. Yeah, I have to agree with that.
Well, yeah, the closest thing they have to proof is Brendan Dassey's stick figure drawing of Teresa on the bed, unfortunately.
Yeah.
Correct.
Okay, another question from Clive. Get that up. Maybe take that off there. Clive says, it shows Brendan was coerced because the Flyover on November 4th, the RAV was not on Avery salvage until early hours of 11/5. Brendan's answers to the questions totally false. Yeah,
Correct.
Completely agree.
And so potentially the state has got exculpatory evidence to totally debunk Brendan Dassey's narrative. And that's why, in my opinion, the Flyover video is heavily edited, because they've got evidence of no RAV4 on the Avery salvage yard on November the 4th. Release the boys immediately. It's the narrative is all bullshit. And they know that.
Complete bullshit. That's right. I agree.
Bullshit.
I agree.
know that.
Yeah, I would tell anyone who is I've thought about this a lot recently. If you want to try to maybe understand how Brendan could have got to the point where he, quote unquote, confessed to the certain things that he confessed to, why don't you sit a 12-year-old down and start asking them question after question after question until they give you the answer that you want to get, because they'll eventually give it to you.
Yes.
That's exactly what happened. It was a guess. You're wrong. You're lying. You're lying. Now you're right. It was just a guessing game.
Yeah. It was. But the other giveaway, guys, was the fact that Brendan didn't think there was any consequences. Right.
He had to get back and turn his project in.
He had to hand in his project, and he thought, oh, maybe I only spend a couple of days in jail, and that's it. And
a day.
He had no idea. No idea what he was confessing to.
No.
Correct. And when they described him, a trigger warning, him having sex with Teresa Horbach, you thinking to yourself, are these guys are they for real? Because the way Brendan described him having sex with Teresa, no one on this planet does what Brendan allegedly did if he was going to have sex with Teresa. And I can't believe that Fassbender Winger thought, this kid's got no idea.
And then they went out into Stephen's living room, sat down, and had a soda for 15 minutes.
Had a soda.
Teresa was still alive.
Yeah, correct. With no gag. No gag.
Yes, completely unbelievable.
It's horrible.
Crazy.
I remember the first time I read through it, I was like, "What? You're kidding?"
Yep.
Anyway, all right. Thank you, Clive. Next question is from Trav. If the DA is absolutely sure that Steve and Brendan are guilty and that their DNA is in the car, why would they just not say to Casey, "Go for it, test, test, test"? Well, I agree.
Two things: finality and protection of the verdicts. That's it.
That's right.
Story closed. Chapter closed. We don't want to open it up because they know if they do, Pandora's box opens up. Now, you might say, well, come on, he's had his day in court, blah, blah, but they've rejected everything, right? And you saw the damage that Kathleen Zellner's experts have done with just item FL. If they get their hands on that RAV4, oh my God, all the plates, all the blinker light.
Or all of them?
Yep.
A23?
Yep. Everything.
A13A?
Yep. Because remember what Colhane did. Colhane said, I looked for stains, I then swabbed. She didn't process the RAV4 properly, right? Or deeply. So if someone plants blood, then your eyes are attracted to the red blood. You go, oh yeah, let me test this. Oh my God, it's Stevens. Oh my God, it's Teresa. Boom, done.
We're done.
We're done. Whereas if you process it properly and look at other spots where someone could potentially grip the car to drive it or put it in park or the handles, etc., that's doing proper processing.
Right.
But what is scary, right, is Colhane used up all the DNA from the key. You can't retest it. Colhane used up all the DNA from the bullet. You can't retest it. Colhane got a partial profile for A23. Nobody wants to talk about it. And now she's saying that I got low-level DNA on the plates. And that's it. No retesting. Why?
Nope.
Because they don't want an answer. They don't want an answer that they can't give an excuse.
Explain. That's right.
Correct.
It's one of the few areas that Kratz almost really, really slipped up on. He did slip up on. No one really caught it at the time. But in his opening statement where he said that A23, he didn't say A23. He said the rear cargo latch had Stevens' DNA, and there was a visible blood stain there.
Yep.
You can see it in the pictures. It's there.
But
not Stevens.
But not only that, Duke. If you look at the news media reports, the early one, we found blood here. We found blood there.
Blood on the keys.
Yeah. Oh my God. People must be thinking, oh my God, there must have been a bloodbath. All the blood was from Stephen. Why?
Right.
Because he cut his hand, he cut his finger, and he even said it when he went to Menards. It's all him.
Yeah.
It's all
and remember the news early on too was there, what they got from law enforcement is that there's evidence that the cremains have been distributed with 5-gallon pails.
Which might give a clue as to how it was dumped in the burn pit, correct?
Correct. What showed up on the 6th is a 5-gallon bucket.
Yep. Correct.
Well, the bones are connected to the RAB because they weren't there on the 6th in the burn pit. The photos prove it.
Yeah,
restanding there proves it.
The only defense to that picture that I've ever heard and could ever possibly be explained is that he had a intense zoom on in that picture and wasn't standing directly next to where quote unquote Teresa was, unfortunately cremated, which she wasn't. The truth is he was standing right there and didn't see anything.
If you saw a pile of bones, boss, you better get down.
We got a problem over here.
Yeah, a pile of bones that Sturdivant said he saw obviously 8 feet south of the burn pit.
And on November the 6th, there were the two detectives that went through the property, and they were standing at the burn pit. They photographed Bear, who just casually walked away and casually walked back in. So much for a big vicious dog, and people are still arguing it.
Oh
Yeah.
my gosh.
The classic one I heard was, oh, you know, on November 12th video, you can actually hear Bear in the background. Oh, he mustn't be too friendly. But they forgot to say
He
there was
was
a fucking
gone.
car alarm going on, and dogs can't stand high-pitched squeals of alarms, and it drives them crazy. My dog used to bark his head off every time I put on the vacuum cleaner. Because
Yep.
when you hear a car alarm beeping off, of course you're thinking, the dog's thinking, what the hell is this high-pitched noise? They naturally bark.
Right.
Right.
And I'm sorry, but you know, at the end of the day, as much as you know, German Shepherds can be aggressive, ferocious dogs that I wouldn't mess with maybe one-on-one. We're talking about a couple hundred law enforcement officers against one dog that's
Correct.
Right.
chained up. Are you
Correct.
kidding me? You're not
Correct.
able to call someone in to figure it out. And when they did want him removed on the 9th, remember, it took how long? Less than 10
7 minutes. 7 minutes.
7
7
minutes.
minutes. But very
Well,
vicious dog.
yeah, super vicious until we saw Joanne Mignon's report where she said that he was constipated and trying to shit all the time. Couldn't make it out. Poor
Right.
guy.
Correct.
Yep. All righty. Next question. Another one from Clive. Dave Remaker mentioned that he thought Stephen was innocent. Sometime later, Remaker is on board with the narrative. Was Remaker reprimanded by his superiors for saying he thought Stephen was not involved? No, he wasn't reprimanded for that. It was over the jury.
The jury. Correct.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Yeah,
Correct.
allowing, I can't remember, the pizza guy to stay back there with the jury for a period of time.
Yep.
Huge no-no.
Correct.
And I think, keep in mind, I don't think they ever intended or thought that we would have ever heard that call where he said that I don't think this guy has anything to do with it.
No.
They actually hid those calls for a while.
Well, that's right.
And
Remember
so, wasn't it Remaker that let it slip?
Yes.
Yep.
Buting and Strang said, what calls he talking about?
Exactly.
You had to give him, because remember, they left Colburn to hang and dry when he called in the plates. There was no timestamp because the MTSO didn't give timestamps until years later.
Well, they could have done it, but they didn't, and I still don't know why they didn't do it.
Because they would have had to hand over all the calls.
Yeah.
Yep.
True.
It's the same reason we don't have any of the calls from the 4th still.
Yes.
Yep. All righty. Next question is from Anthony Hills. Who knew Stephen bled in that sink?
I could tell you 100%. His brother Chuck.
Chuck would have known.
Yep.
And Chuck smoked cigarettes.
Yeah, correct. Yep. And Stephen smelt cigarette smoke. Correct.
Okay. Next question. Another question from Clive.
I'd also just real quick make a side note there, complete speculation, but Chuck was close with some people within law enforcement. Correct?
He was.
Yeah, and the scary thing is, when people asked who potentially could have done this, the number one person on the list wasn't Stephen, wasn't Brenton, it was Chuck Avery.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm not saying he did anything wrong or nefarious, but yeah, I'll just leave it at that.
All righty. Next question from Clive. Where's the effing blunt, bloody instrument found in the RAV by the lab tech and Wiegert writing an affidavit, conveniently not signing it? He knew it existed. He knew where it went. Big conspiracy there. Well, he didn't sign it because it was an unfiled warrant, but it still contained the information. I'll let you guys go with that.
Yeah, well, here's the irony, right, Duke? Right, Jack 61. The way, if you read the Disturbed Earth search warrant, it's written as though Cuss Road is a crime scene. Correct? Would you agree?
It is.
You read it,
Oh, absolutely.
Cuss Road is your number one crime scene. And we get spelled out all the reasons why. And he mentioned loof, he mentioned Brutus, he mentioned the disturbed earth, that it was freshly dug, right? The whole lot. It was a number one crime scene. What did Fassbender do when Brendan started talking about taking the RAV across the field? Goes, oh, so you went there. And Brendan goes, no.
No.
Mhm.
The other
Well,
way.
yeah, you know, along with the, you know, the bloody instrument, it also said, you know, the human bones, like the ones that were found in the clandestine burial site. I mean, these aren't typos. These aren't typos.
No.
The cadaver
So-
dock hit, the
Yep.
the tarp, piece of tarp that they found, the rope.
You
Yep.
can't accidentally type a bloody blunt instrument
No.
No.
or bones that were found in the clandestine burial site. Like, you can't accidentally type that.
No. They were going with Cuss Road being the crime scene.
Because it
and
was.
so- yes, no doubt about it. For some unknown reason, it didn't work. It didn't work. Yep. So they went with Brendan's narrative, and we've demonstrated over and over again you can totally debunk Brendan. Now that Sawinski and Baresh have come along, man,
Yeah.
the state's a problem. The state's got a
That's
huge
right.
problem.
That's right. Yeah, it's a great question, Clive. We still don't have an answer for the blunt, bloody instrument. What happened to it? It's mentioned one time in the entire trial, the entire investigation, I should say, as far as I know, one time, and it's in that unfiled warrant. But we don't know. I'd love to know.
But there was hints of law enforcement officers looking for something
Hacksaw
that would
blade.
have a hacksaw blade, but also just a kit that was maybe missing.
That's right.
Oh yeah, they were looking for
instrument.
the tire tool out of the Toyota RAV4 kit
Correct.
that came with the car.
It's
Yep.
a tie to, you can't make a direct connection, but you could make a pretty good inference that those two things are connected.
Very
Yep.
possible.
They were looking
As far
for it.
as I know, it wasn't found.
No, they were looking for it, couldn't find it.
Yep. Alrighty, next question is from Shane Carlos. Shane's a new face to Foul Play. Thanks for joining us. Was Brendan ever asked, did Stephen invite you to smash the bones and help with the dismembering?
Dismembering was never mentioned. Brendan Dassey never mentioned dismembering. A crushing of bones was when basically using the shovel and the rake to crunch bones. Brendan did mention something like that, but they forgot one major event: dismemberment.
They did.
Never mentioned by Brendan. And I've done a lot of posting on X where the investigators were going, Brendan, are you sure you didn't do anything else in that garage? They were referring to the chains. They were referring to the rope, which they tested. Nothing was there. Are you sure you didn't do anything else? No chopping up or any? No, Stephen never mentioned any. Now, how in God's name can Brendan not remember a dismemberment of a human being
Oh
in the
my
garage
God.
or anywhere? This is becoming now worse than Twilight Zone because Brendan forgot to mention one of the main components of the murder, and that is Teresa was dismembered.
That's right.
Yeah, we have
mention
yet to, at least myself personally, I have yet to hear someone who is believed in the state's narrative on how these, we know for a fact, not guess, of how these hesitation cut marks got onto these bones. We know for a fact that it was caused by some sort of saw instrument.
Correct. Yes.
We know that for a fact, and yet I have yet to hear where this dismemberment, and I apologize for how crude that sounds, but I've yet to hear someone explain to me where this dismemberment happened, where Brendan or Stephen were using a saw to dismember this body. As horrible as it sounds, the only explanation I've ever received is that those hesitation cut marks must have come from a rake or a shovel, which is physically impossible.
No,
It's impossible.
The straight cut marks.
They are.
And when you're using something like a rake or something like a shovel, you're going to crunch and crack the bones. You're not going to do a cut within the bone. This is some type of cutting instrument that is strong enough to cut through bone or cut bone. And hesitation cut marks is even worse because it means that the person had multiple attempts at cutting through the bone, right?
Yes.
And don't forget, 60% of the skeletal remains are missing, which means that if she's dismembered, Kathleen Zellner said they couldn't find any spinal cord, they couldn't find ribs, which meant that her torso is gone. Torso is gone.
Right.
That is terrifying. And then the biggest joke, I saw your postings on X about Jost, the bone that they saw in the grass, the
Right.
cord,
Yeah.
the spinal cord, and it was never picked up because it was an animal bone. It didn't belong to a human being, right? And I posted it. They only sifted the ash, the small ash, 4 foot by 5 foot. They never touched anything on the outside, right?
Yeah, I'd encourage people to read my post, and one of the things I wanted to emphasize in my last post on X was the first image that I put was a screenshot of Tom Sturdivant during the trial where he was explaining to everyone how they went about sifting that ash on the 8th. And think about this, just close your eyes, make your own visual in your head here. He's scooping ash with the shovel, Earl is, he's putting it on top of a sifter. This sifter is about waist high, maybe a little higher for everyone to be able to see pretty clearly what's on there. And they're using their hands to spread out the dirt.
Yes.
Now, anything smaller than 1/4 of an inch, which is the mesh size, is falling through. So as they spread out with their hands, they'll obviously be able to see things that are larger than 1/4 of an inch that remain on top of the sifting screen there. I mean, right there. Then they've got multiple people around. There is a 2.4 by 1.2 inch piece of desiccated muscle tissue that is allegedly not seen on the 8th. And I want to know how it was missed.
Where the hell it come from?
It's bullshit.
How was it missed? If they're spreading this stuff out with their hands and looking at it, how was it missed? That was the point of that post.
No. No. The answer is no. And the other ridiculous thing is that they left the tire wire on the 8th.
Oh my God.
With the skull fragments.
Correct.
Well, and that's another huge sticking point that the implication was that was bone melted in these wires, but they didn't test any of it. Not one.
No, remember the those pictures of the melted stuff. That to me looks like insulation, because remember Pevito and his crew.
Yeah.
All these small fragments that look like bones, and they collected them in a container. It was labeled bone fragments. When Eisenberg looked at them and said, they're all insulation, all of them. Yeah. But if you look at them close, my God, they look like bones.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Understandable. But correct. Then that implication Kratz brought up in court, I mean, to me, Buting and String should have been on fire at that point. Like, wait a minute. Yep. Did you test any of that?
No. And anyway. What is very suspicious is when you show up a zoomed up shot with no reference and no scale. That's what the problem is. Like these bones that were entangled in the tire wire, were they that big? Were they that big? And bone doesn't form an amorphous blob like that.
Right.
Right. Remember, there's a reason why Kratz edited the image of item BZ when he was showing Cole Hain.
He left all the important stuff out.
He left the giant piece of muscle tissue out of that cropped image.
Yep. Has he ever answered you at all about that?
Absolutely not. No.
He hasn't answered. He hasn't answered mine either.
He's not going to, because he can't. There is no answer.
The number one the number one item that would have stayed on top of the sieve is item BZ. And
Absolutely.
It
item
would have been the gold mine for the search. It would have been the gold mine for the cadaver dogs.
other dogs
Yep.
would have gone nuts.
It would have gone nuts.
Yep.
It wasn't
Yep.
there.
No,
No.
it wasn't.
That was found on the 10th, right, Duke?
10th. Yep.
It was found on the 10th in the Calumet County Sheriff's Department basement or wherever they were storing these tarps full of debris.
Right.
It was found inside of a tarp the morning of the 10th. Correct.
Amazing.
Correct.
All right. We got another question from Anthony. With Ryan living in Teresa's house, what are the chances of secondary live scent transfer?
Mm-hmm. Well, this is the problem. When I spoke with the professional
Expert.
canine dog handler, he said one of the biggest problems is contamination, right? And if there were people in the house collecting items, touching items, and they're walking all over the Avery salvage yard, there's a potential of cross-contamination. Plus, Sarah Fausk herself could have contaminated as well, right? So you got to be very, very careful. And the reason why they're very skeptical is that no body was found. No scent source was found. So the dog handler said to me, "What do you know what the dog was following?"
That's
Could be
right.
any- And you go, "Yeah, you're right."
Well,
I never
right,
thought of that
those-
before. We started talking about that a few months ago. Go ahead, Duke.
Mhm. Yeah, well, because those, what Sarah Faust was using for her source of scent was never entered into evidence, so that doesn't help.
No.
It also doesn't help that we know that Ryan and Scott were on the scene. So none of that stuff helps us, give a clearer picture to what Luke was actually tracking. We don't know.
Correct. But the sudden change between November 7th to November 8th,
Mhm.
I thought very, very telling. Something happened.
Track 4 of Luke's to track 6 of Luke's,
Yep.
Luke's, which happened on 2 separate days.
Yep.
Both beginning in the same spot, one going out towards Manitowoc County gravel pit.
Yep.
And on the 7th, and then on the 8th, it's a shot straight up towards Stevens' trailer.
Correct. Something happened. Yep. And you got to remember that forensic evidence can move in both directions, from somewhere to somewhere.
Absolutely.
Yep. Dog won't tell you that.
All right. Next question is from Clive. Is Teresa's death certificate a legal document? I ask because if the guys murdered her on October 31st, 2005, wouldn't her death certificate show October 31st, 2005? Instead, it was November 10th, 2005 on it, very fishy. Well, that's...
Michael Glazer, he went to Mickle's Quarry, right? Remember when they found
That's right.
the foot? It turned out to be insulation, and they said they
that's-
found the spinal cord and all this sort of stuff. And that day, he signed the death certificate.
Yeah, I can't get into the I can't get into the legalities. That'd be more of a Travis question. The lawyers that could more honestly answer that.
Yes.
Yeah, what I've always thought was just, I can't put the 2 and 2 together, but how are they finding a burnt piece of insulation out in Mitchell's Quarry?
Yeah,
And burnt insulation all around Stephen Avery's burn pit.
that's right.
Yes.
Yeah, and whatever Ertl and his gang dug up over there.
Yes, I did. There's sifting equipment there too.
You mean the bone and flesh that was mentioned?
Yep.
That three human
Three
remains detection
different
dogs?
Three
Yep.
different dogs all did hits, and I've heard arguments. Oh, they all got it wrong. All three?
Yeah.
All three?
All three?
Okay, maybe one I could see maybe getting it wrong. All three? I don't think
Remember, if that's your belief, that's the only logical explanation you could give, is that all 3 dogs are wrong.
And if you go by that, never use a cadaver dog or a scent dog. Correct?
Yeah.
Never. Never.
And
Just
don't use them for, he sniffed at Stephen's door.
Yep. Correct. If you're going to use that, they're wrong. Then forget it.
You
Throw
either believe them or you believe them or you don't.
Correct. Yeah, and that's why now, years later, Sarah Faust comes up with her hypothesis of Luth detecting the scent of ash.
Well, I think
On
what's
the
most
berm.
frustrating is this whole, either you use them or you don't. Remember, the state used the cadaver dogs, Brutus, to say that once Brutus hit on the RAV, we knew that Teresa was
Homicide.
no longer alive.
Correct.
Yep.
And yet, when 3 of them hit in Mitchell's Quarry, no big deal.
No
When
big
none
deal.
of them hit at Stevens Burn Pit, no big deal.
No big deal.
When they hit at Cuss Road, Pete Mossbag.
Piedmont, correct. No big deal. Yeah, correct.
That's right. That's a good question, Clive. I wish we could give you a better answer, but I can't.
Yeah.
I don't think any of us really can.
Unless it's different in Wisconsin, but they are legal documents. They're legal documents. Death certificate, oh my God, that's a big deal. They are legal documents.
Yeah, I guess there's nuances with every state probably, but I would think it's a legal document. And yeah, I'm gonna leave it there. That's really more of a lawyer question.
More of a lawyer question, correct.
Yeah. Alrighty, next question is from Ronica Clack. Hello, Ronica. Where was Earl when the number plates were found, and why did it take him 3 hours to get there?
Do you know that? Was he processing other stuff on the property or property?
Yeah. So on the morning of the 8th, which is when the key was found, as well as the license plates were found, I believe the key was found first.
And the burn pit.
And the burn pit. I believe that it was on that day. The key was found probably around 9:30 or 10 a.m. The license plates were found shortly after.
Around noon, wasn't it?
No.
Around
9:30. I think 9:30 they found it.
9:30. Okay. Yeah. Okay.
It took 3 hours to get there.
So Ertl and his team were at the sheriff's department, finishing up the sifting of the 5 burn barrels, the 40-ounce burn barrels, and Stephen Avery's burn barrel. That's what they were finishing up that morning. Once they did finish, which they said was around noon, they went back out to the scene and processed, I think, the different areas that are out there. However, it's important to note that Ertl says or doesn't mention either in his reports or at trial that he was called out for the license plates and delayed that to finish the burn barrels. He simply just says once he finished the burn barrels, they went out there and they were told what was going on and they went to the scene. So it wasn't necessarily that it was delayed. I think what was more important is that he finished the burn barrels. And then once he got out to the scene that day, he, went to the areas that were relevant. So.
Right. Yeah. Well, if they're in the middle of doing this, going through these burn barrels, I can understand why he wouldn't necessarily want to stop in the middle of what they were doing, because you don't want to leave that stuff out. You want to finish it, get it repackaged, so forth and so on. I can honestly understand that.
Sorry.
Sorry, Doc. The issue is that they did stop the burn barrel search to go to Cuss Road.
That's true.
Enough.
That's true. They did.
And it's also important to note that once they did do the license plates, Ertl and his team, because it was really important that, the areas that were, that I guess law enforcement felt like it was important to get processed. They really did want to get Ertl and his team out there. And the burn pit, that's the big issue, right? Because they were on the property. They had finished collecting the license plates. And I think Ertl had mentioned that, they were by 3 p.m. when they were finally called to the burn pit, which was discovered an hour and a half earlier. They were sitting around not doing much. They were asked for their sifting equipment.
Yes, correct.
And because they weren't doing anything else, he decided to come along with. He wasn't requested to go out there. They just wanted his sifting equipment. He's like, well, I'm not doing anything, so I'll come too.
Yep. Yeah. Yep. And again, no photography. But the
Because it
irony,
had been obviously altered.
yeah, the irony is this, right? That all these texts, the whole argument was, well, we needed the MTSI because they're evidence text. Yet it took 3 hours to go and process the plates with
Yeah.
all those evidence texts, right? Yeah, crazy.
Right. And I also
Yeah.
just find it super fascinating that, you know, Ertl's excuse for not photographing the burn pit was because it was obviously altered. And, you know, that explanation is, we can all speculate on what that means exactly, because the question was never asked specifically, what do you mean by it was
Yes.
altered? Which is really unfortunate. But what we can all, I think, agree on is that there was something about the burn pit that was, to him, had clearly
Changed.
something
Different.
had changed. And what I struggle to understand is, with the license plates, it was given, you know, right away, it was common knowledge that they were found, they were removed, unfolded, and then set back in there.
Right.
That would to me be, it would be altered, correct?
Completely altered. Absolutely.
So why is that photographed and not the bones?
Yeah,
Exactly.
Exactly.
It's hypocritical. You know, and with the, you know, with Cuss Road, Zhang was right there. He's the camera guy.
Yes.
Yet nothing that we know of anyway.
Yeah, we know Colburn went there twice to help.
Yes.
H1, H2. I mean,
Yeah, and he
body
told
with measurements.
Ertl that there was nothing to see. He told Ertl
Yeah, nothing to see.
nothing to see here.
Yeah, right. But let's spend all day over here anyway.
Correct.
So, okay. Last question. Another one from Monica. Why would law enforcement need to contact scrapyards if they already found the RAV4?
That's a very, very good question. I suppose because their argument was, well, did Stephen murder anybody else and get rid of their vehicle? So I think they were double checking what the process was, how the so if their theory was that Stephen was going to crush it, what was the process? What do? So once they crush a vehicle, they're obviously not going to leave it on the property. Where's it taken? So that's why they asked those two salvage yard, well, do you receive crushed vehicles from them, right? And then Chuck told them what they do. Norbs comes along, grabs the crushed vehicles.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good question. I really don't know why they didn't, or why they did. They already had the RAV. I can't answer that one.
Yep.
Looks like we've got a few more questions that's popped in. We typically don't do these, but one from Travis, Jack from Denny Brewer fan, is Nichols Quarry? Oh, it's Mitchell. Okay, Mitchell's Quarry, the one that is basically a man-made lake now. That's a good question.
The landscape has completely changed. Completely changed. You can't sort of go back now and go over the material, because Cuss Road, the whole cornfield, all of that is now just all quarry. It's completely different now.
Yeah, that that area where the disturbed earth was found, all the trees are cut down. It's totally different now.
Totally different now. Correct.
Yeah, I tell you what, though, I wouldn't rule out if there was something still
buried.
I bet you a cadaver dog, considering what we know about them, they would smell it.
Yes, they would. Yep.
And last one that I'll pop on, because we've been rolling for a while. From TJ, what day were the bones allegedly found?
Which ones?
Which bones?
Which pile are you allegedly talking about? Or alleged pile, I should say.
At the burn pit on the 8th.
Yeah.
Cuss Road, 7th. And Manitowoc County Gravel Pit was it the 10th or the 11th? They were finding bone debris piles. And they found 3.
Mitchell's Quarry was the 6th.
Was Quarry? Yep.
6,
They-
is that right?
On the 6th, they dug out almost a 3 foot or 6 foot
6 foot.
6 foot pile of dirt
Yep.
and placed it onto a tarp.
Yep.
Correct. And I think it was one of the investigators asked for the cadaver dogs to go back and recheck it the day after it got dug, and the dogs didn't react. Why? Because they removed the scent source. That's why.
Right. They had to
And,
make sure they got it all.
And Colhane said, no, these are not human. And she didn't say how she determined them weren't human. No.
It was tissue.
That pink flesh, the blood, nope, not human.
Yeah, I'd like to see those bench notes.
All right. I think Jeepers, I'll tell you what, lucky we only did half the podcast. We did 4 hours. All right.
Yeah.
Unless anybody's got any comments. Jack 61.
Yeah, well, open mic tomorrow is going to be, we're going to go jumping back into the dispatch calls for a round. I can't remember where we're at. I think it's November 7th. Well, I can't remember. Whatever it is. It'll be the next one in line. And then I did want to pass on just a bit of information about open records requests. And it's not just me. I know I've heard from other people that write requests that are just having a really difficult time getting anything out of Calumet County or the DOJ. And I actually, since it's been, I'll have to look, probably at least 2 weeks, I actually wrote for a status update request from the head guy, which is Paul Ferguson at the DOJ. He's the one that used to answer pretty much all of my open records requests of the DOJ. And then he stopped once he became like the top dog, I guess. But I sent it directly to his email. And I listed I've got 3 outstanding ones from the DOJ. One of them was August of 2022. Still don't have it. I got 2 from last year. Still don't have it. And I can't get a reply. Their own policy says you should have an answer within 10 days. 10 working days. And, same thing with Calumet. It's just ridiculous. So 3 nights ago, there's a way you can contact Governor Evers directly through email. So I freaking reported it. I don't know what else to do except for, start just hammering social media with all my requests to these and just start hammering these news organizations, see if somebody will pick it up and investigate, force the issue.
Yes.
Because to hire a lawyer is, you're getting up into probably thousands of dollars to take them to court to force the issue. And even then, you don't know which direction it'll go. This could be money down the drain. And I don't have that kind of money to spend on doing that. So wanted to report that. Hopefully, you guys can join us tomorrow for the open mic if you're interested in going back through and picking these dispatch calls apart. And want to thank everybody for the great questions, great commentary, and thanks for joining us.
Thank you so much. If you enjoy what we do, please subscribe, put your DNA on the thumbs up button, and please share our podcast. Thank you so much, guys. You've been awesome. Cheers.
And with that, good night, good evening, good morning. This has been a Foul Play production.